Hello everyone and welcome to yet another recreational programming session with Le Monsieur Zuzin. So people who watch me on Twitch know this thing. This is the timer that I start before the stream, right? When I'm making a cup of tea or on the breaks and stuff like that. You know, people on YouTube don't know how breaks usually go. I just snap my fingers and sort of teleport around. But there's some action going on Twitch, that gets cut out. Exclusive content, exclusive Twitch content. So go follow me on Twitch. And so this is a custom application that I developed myself. So this is a timer, right? So it has a timer, and I can put some different signs in there. So there's a file somewhere here, right? So here I can say small break, right? So which is going to be for 5 minutes, and it automatically updates that, restarts the timer and stuff like that. And on top of that, we have a little bit of a music player going on, so we can play some music so people are not that bored. So, and an interesting thing is that this is not web technologies. This is not an Electron or anything like that. It's a native application, and it's developed in Jai, yeah, it's developed in Jai, and for graphics it's using Raylib. Nothing particularly special. But even though it's not a web technology, to facilitate this layout, I kind of ended up reinventing CSS. Believe it or not, I kind of ended up reinvented CSS. So there is, like in the folder with an executable, there is a data folder, right? So where I store all of the assets, some configuration files and stuff like that. And there's a particular file in here called style.ini, right? So for all of the configuration format as of right now, I slopped together ini parser. It is not, compliant with any of the standards of ini parser or anything like that, but it kind of works for my specific case. Right, so, and in here I have basically different sections for different elements on the screen. Things like timer, thumbnail, title, link, logo, and so on and so forth. And we can take a look at some of these things in here. So let me actually maybe readjust things around. Right, for example, this is obviously a timer. And each of the elements, as far as I know, I recently introduced that, you can basically put a frame true in here, and it would draw a frame around this element so you can see its boundaries. By the way, it is hot reloaded. This entire config is automatically hot reloaded. And again, this is not Electron, this is not web or anything like that. This is a native custom application, right? So all of that stuff is developed from scratch. So, and essentially I have different properties in here: left, top, right? So there's only left and top, and through left I can actually move things around, right? So I can move things around like that. I can adjust things, right? So I can change the composition of this entire thing. And the interesting thing in here is that I forgot what was the interesting thing, but yeah, so that's roughly the idea. And so the way you create elements is rather interesting. Right, so let's actually try to create maybe a new element that we want to place on the screen, right? So maybe we can place some sort of an image in here, right? So what kind of image we're going to put in there? Let's actually see. Let's maybe grab some sort of an emote like Tsojin Pog, right? So there's a Tsojin Pog emote, and let's go ahead and maybe grab it. So I'm gonna copy the link to its image, right? Hopefully, yeah, there we go. So I'm going to go ahead and save it somewhere in a data folder like that, right? So this is going to Tsojin Pog, Tsojin Pog PNG. So did it save it? There you go. So here is the Tsojin Lepog, Tsojin Lepog. And so now in a code, what I want to do, I want to maybe find event loop. So this is basically an event loop where we poll events and when we draw things and stuff like that. And as you can see, it is looping while window should not close, right? While window should not close. So I have a function, load texture from file, and this is function useful primarily because Raylib doesn't allow you to do that, right? So in the terminology of Raylib, there's two things called Images and textures. Image is an image on CPU stored in the CPU memory and RAM, and texture is the same image but stored on a GPU memory. Right, so and the way you create a texture in RayLeap, you load the image, the CPU image, from the hard drive, usually, then you load texture from image. So as far as I know, at least I couldn't find it, there is no direct way of loading GPU texture from files, so you have to chain these two things together. So I created auxiliary function load texture from file. It loads image from the hard drive, and then it converts it into the GPU texture. On top of that, it enables a bunch of filters to make it look a little bit better, and so on and so forth. Nothing particularly special, just to explain what the fuck this function does, right? So just to explain it. So anyway, what we want to do in here is probably, so essentially go into the data, sodium pog. Right, so this is going to be PNG, and let's say this is going to be sodium pog, right? So this is a sodium lepog. Sodium lepog, and at the end of this entire thing, let's go ahead and maybe draw the texture. Let me maybe find some stuff in here. So there was something like a draw texture. Yeah, let's use this one, right? So draw texture, this is going to be sodium pog. And it's going to be drawn at 0, 0 with the tint white. Tint is just basically an additional color that is slapped on top of the texture, right? If you want to tint it in a particular way or something like that, we don't need that. So if you don't want to have any special tint, you just put white in here and it's totally fine. All right, so let's actually try to run this entire thing. And as you can see, here is lepog. Here is lepog. So we can try to maybe even modify it, right? So it's not going to hot reload, by the way, by default. So if I open it up in something like, let's say, Krita, Fita. And what should we put in here? We can maybe put some mustache, right? So something like that. So this is going to be mustache. So is that a good mustache? And then I save the sodium pog. As you can see, it didn't get hot reloaded, right, at all. And this is because you need to handle that. You need to handle that in event loop, right? So there is so-called file watcher. Jai comes with file watcher, right? So you can point that file watcher at a particular folder, in our case data folder, and then in an event loop you can periodically poll that watcher, and if anything changes in there, this poller will return true, and you can hot reload things. You can actually hot reload things. So in this specific case, for example, we try to reload all sorts of things. We can go ahead and do what, right? So we can unload texture, which is sodium pog, right? So we're unloading that texture, and we're loading that texture again, right? So we're loading that texture again in here. So, but without redefining this entire thing. All right, let's actually restart the whole thing. And as you can see, there is a mustache in here, but let's actually remove it and save it again. Save it again, and as you can see, it hot reloaded automatically. So this is how hot reloading here works, right? So we're just watching for the files, and then we're hot reloading the relevant things. We're hot reloading the relevant things. But now here is an interesting thing. How do you add a style to this entire thing? How do I modify position and stuff like that? This is very interesting question. Let's go ahead and explore that. So I'm going to go into the style. Right, so this is going to be, where is that style? Here it is. And let's create a new section in here. This is going to be a POG section. So for now, let's say that it's going to have two properties in here. Left property, which is going to be equal to 0, and a top property, which is also going to be equal to 0. So here's an interesting thing about the units in this specific style. All of the units are normalized, meaning that they are values from 0 to 1, and they're basically percentages of either width or height of the entire screen correspondingly, right? So here, this is basically the like 54% of the width of the entire screen, and that's the position of this thing. So it's all independent from actual pixel sizes. You see what we're doing here? You see what we're doing here? So it doesn't depend on pixels. It's all in percentages. So, and in this specific case, 0 is going to mean that, hopefully. So, and essentially, how do we load style? Let's go into here, And so there is a style. So yeah, there we go. So we call a function called load_ini file, load_ini file, and it comes from a custom implementation of the ini parser. So let's actually take a look at that. Right, ini parser, like ini file, the parsed ini file is basically a nested hash table. Look at the definition of an ini file in here closely. So it's a hash table with a key string that maps to another hash table with a key string that maps to any value. So in Jai, there is a special value called any that basically can store any value at all, like a dynamic value. So, and if you take a look at any ini file, it kind of maps to that, right? So basically the outer hash table is the section. So we're going to take a look at the data. We're going to take a look at the data. So the outer one is one of the sections, and this is the key for the section. And inside of that section, you have a key, value, key, value, key, value. So, and any is rather interesting value. It's a rather interesting thing. We can take a look at that maybe. So there was a how-to in Jai. I'm pretty sure there was a how-to in Jai for any things. So there's a special type called any that when type checked matches successfully against any other type in the language, this allows you to assign one variable to values of different types, as you might do in a non-statically typed programming language. There you go. So here's the any, you can assign 3, you can print it, or you can assign string, and so on and so forth. As you can see, it's just like it doesn't particularly care, right? It doesn't particularly care. But internally, any is a structure which holds two fields. The type, which holds the type info, right? So it's a runtime information about the type, right? So Jai is capable of baking information about types at runtime into the executable, right? So if at any particular time information about the type required at runtime, it will automatically bake it into the executable, right? So the same type information can be used both at compile time and runtime. And on top of that, it also holds the pointer to some value, and which probably corresponds to this specific type. And all of that automatic conversion, basically boxing and stuff like that, is done automatically, right? So it's basically syntax sugar. So this is the kind of thing we're talking about. And I just employed this type for storing the values of the sections of the fields of the sections of ini file. So we can even maybe try to use that. That sounds like an interesting idea. So let's actually create some sort of a full Jai file, right? Just to get the gist of how this entire thing works, I'm going to import ini, right? On top of that, I'm going to import basic. And let's actually print something like hello seaman, right? So hello seaman, and I'm going to do something like full auto run. There we go. So it says hello seaman. We need some sort of a bullshit ini file, right? So this is going to be full ini. And in here, we're going to have, let's say, 2 sections, foo and bar. So we're going to have something like test1, which is going to be float 69420, test2, which is going to be, I suppose, a string, and test3, which is going to be Boolean. So as far as NumPy only supports these things for now. Right, so here we're going to have something like 337, and the world is going to be something like that, right? So let's actually create, this kind of file. We can also support comments. Comments are also supported. Comments are also supported. Okay, cool. So now in that test file, if I take a look at how we even load things. So load ini file. This is how you do that. So the file path is going to be a full ini. So this is what we're doing in here. So it returns 2 values, ini and OK. So in case of the Error, as far as I know, it is going to log that error, so I think it's safe to just like exit if it didn't succeed doing the thing. So after that, let's actually iterate ini, right? And let's actually print the names of all of the sections that we got in here. So it index is basically prints you the keys, right? So it basically prints you the keys. So let's actually put a new line in here and let's run the whole thing. So it didn't really like yeah, for expansions. So essentially iterate, if you want to be able to iterate hash tables, you also have to import the hash table module. There you go. And here are all of the sections that we got, right? So in the original file in here, we had two sections, foo and bar, and here they are. We're able to actually print them, right? So I might as well even put like a, you know, bar in like a frame around this entire thing. So let's go ahead and do that. So here it is, foo and bar. And within this entire thing, let's actually iterate each individual field, right? So for it, which is the value of the element, right? So you have things like it index, which corresponds to the key, and just it corresponds to the value, right? You can obviously, it's very easy to actually map them to these specific things, right? So, but I just want to keep it small, right? So I'm going to use it index and it. So I'm iterating it, and so let's actually print int index as usual. And then here, what we're going to do, we're going to actually print something like here is the key, and here is the value, it index it. And since it is any print, it can actually work with any and properly print it anyway. So that should be fine. So if we try to print this entire thing, and there we go, here is the parsed ini file. Pretty cool. So it's pretty cool language, honestly. So if you need to, you have a little bit of dynamic typing, you have hash tables. It's already better than C. So anyways, so once you loaded this in your file, you can access very specific fields reversed. This is because it's a hash table. So the thing about hash table, the order of the elements in a hash table are not defined. So because of that, if you iterate in them, like you never know in which order you're going to be accessing the elements, and it is basically a trade-off of being able to access the elements faster if you know the key, right? So if you know the key, you can perform a query to get a value, and usually that query performed in a constant time, right? And the trade-off is that you don't know in which order they are stored in memory, right? So, and because of that, when you try to iterate them, it's there in kind of like might be in the reversed order. So that's kind of expected from hash tables. It's an acceptable trade-off that we're making in here. But anyways, so, and in here, right, so this particular parser also allows you to get a field of a particular section. So like this one. So let's say that I want to take the field test1 of section foo. Let's go ahead and do that. So I have to provide ini by a pointer for some reason, but that's besides the point. So the section name is going to be foo, right? So this is the foo, and I said test2, right? Let's actually access test2. So here I may provide whether to log errors or not to log errors when you're trying to access that something doesn't exist, but this is a default value, we can actually ignore that. And also you have to provide the type. So this is a polymorphic function, or in terms of like C++, it's template function, right? So here I can literally provide the type, like what type I expect from that field. So since I know that the type of this field is a string, I'm going to say it is a string in here. So it is organized so the function returns the type that you put in here, right? You have to provide the type, and then it infers the return type out of that. So just because I put string in here means that it will return a pointer to string now, right? It will return a pointer to string. Is this the ini file module someone posted in beta chat? I don't know, but I wrote this thing myself. Right, so it's 129 lines of code, it's very small, and it's actually specifically for my use case. But anyways, so let's actually print the value. So let's go ahead and do that. So it's going to be foo test2 is equal to this specific thing. Right, so this is what we're going to have. So I'm printing this entire thing, and as you can see, it returns string. Right. So this is the module that we use for configuration and for styles. So this is literally the thing we use to parse this style file, right? So, and there's a lot of like different things in here, and this is literally what we use in here. In the main program, right, so there is a style. Where is that? I can't really find style. Where, here it is. And then, I suppose it has to be just a second, style. There we go. Right, so we're just loading the style file into a separate allocator, by the way. We have a separate arena into which we're loading everything related to configuration. So then when we hot reload thing, we can actually wipe out the entire thing related to the configuration. So here it is. Here is the style, which means that if I want to pick up my style of POG, what I have to do, where do I draw POG? Tsodin POG, right? So here is the Tsodin POG. So Tsodin POG, somewhere here. There we go. So here's where I specify the position. So that means this is where I have to try to query left and top fields from the ini file, right? So let's go ahead and do that. So I have to do get ini field from the style, and the section I expect is POG. Then I specify left, and then I expect float value in here, right? So then I dereference this entire thing, and there we go. Here is the left value, and then here I can do something like right. So, and then I can feed all of these left values, left and right values into this entire thing. So, but that's not enough, right? So because left and right values are in normalized coordinates. They are in, it's actually not right. It's supposed to be top. I apologize, right? So they are in normalized coordinates. That means they are percentages of width and height correspondingly. The current width and height, if I remember correctly, you can take them through this macro. So this is the width of the screen and this is the height of the screen, right? There we go. So this is how you correctly do this entire stuff. There we go. If I try to now run the main application, right? So this can be first run. So obviously something didn't work in here. This is because the draw texture expects integer. Okay, it expects integer. So let's actually do something like that. Let's run the whole thing. Okay, what that means, chat? What that means is that now I can do shit like that. Well, I mean, probably like that. It hot reloads. So this is how the whole system is organized. So yeah, so you have this ini file, it hot reloads, and you kind of bind it to these elements and stuff like that. But I went even further. What I noticed that I quite often have very common elements with very common set of fields, right? And this is actually rather interesting. So essentially, there is a pretty cool function called place texture element. What it accepts texture, style ini, style section, and potential tint and stuff like that, which you probably can ignore. But here's the interesting thing: texture, the ini file, style ini file, and style section. So, and what it will do, it will basically use common fields for texture element, and you don't have to read them yourself. So it kind of like a little bit automates some of the stuff, right? So for example, I don't want to be pulling out all of these fields, left, top, width, height, and so on and so forth. It's kind of tedious. I don't want to be doing all of that stuff. So what I can do in here, okay, place texture element, texture with the style, and a section, look up section POG. Look up section POG, and there you go. That's literally it. That is literally it. So this is going to be Tsodin POG, right? So this is a Tsodin POG. And so something, yeah, so essentially it actually expects some of the fields to be present. For example, it expects widths to be present, right? So the system is set up so if you're trying to access some field that doesn't exist, it will crash. I created an issue to not do that, but that's besides the point. So where is the style ini? So let's create a width. What's going to be the width? Width is going to be 10% of the screen. So it will probably, there we go. So, and now it has a bunch of predefined fields that I didn't explicitly pull from the style, right? So it has width. I can make the width slightly smaller. I can move things around. And furthermore, I can, for example, set a debug frame. So it also has this debug frame automatically. So I kind of reinvented HTML and CSS. So CSS is a runtime and HTML is basically this code where I say, okay, like place this element, but exact position and style of this element is going to be determined at runtime by a specific section in a style file. You know what I'm saying? Doesn't that remind you CSS? It kind of similar to CSS, right? But it's actually much simpler, right? It's actually much simpler because it only has the things that I need. So yeah, that's basically the system, and it allows me to just throw together different elements in here, and it's rather convenient. It is rather convenient, but it has a little bit of a flaw. A little bit of a flaw. By the way, I can actually hide things. I can say try like hide true, and it will hide it actually. Hide is one of the also predefined fields that exist for the elements, right? So it's kind of convenient. For example, I need it right now. I don't need it anymore. I can actually hide it, so it doesn't exist anymore. So there is a little bit of a problem. So for example, I have a player. I have this player. And so there's three elements in the player: the thumbnail, right, the title, and the QR code. So in the style, QR code is called link, right? So because it's a link to the Bandcamp page of the artist. And here is the thing: they all aligned to the center. Alignment to the center means that left uses pivot as the center, right? So it uses center pivot. And you may notice that thumbnail, title, and link, right, and link, they literally have the same left. Look at that. They literally have the same left. So they are basically aligned by the same line in here. If I want to change them all to the left, right, so I have to actually modify them simultaneously, right? So I have to modify this one, have to modify this one, I have to modify this one, and it's not particularly convenient. It would be kind of cool if it just basically had some sort of a variable. I could define the position of one thing and just say, okay, use position of that style there. Variable support, some sort of a variable support and stuff like that. But on top of that, I also want to have more complicated things. I want to have conditions. Like, for example, I created two separate styles, right? So because I introduced a wiggle timer from the first iteration of Subun. So this was the first iteration of Subun, right? So, and I backported that wiggle thingy, and yeah, I had to create a separate style file because the wiggle timer had a different shape and it screwed up the entire composition. So I had to change the entire composition, and I still didn't like the composition, so I put it into a separate file. So let me actually show you how it looks like, and it's probably broken, by the way, but we'll fix that. That's not that big of a deal. So this is going to be ln style new wiggle. I'm going to point it at style any. So it is, yeah. Let me actually remove that because it's supposed to be a symlink. There we go. So if I try to run the whole thing, right? If I try to run the whole thing, yeah, it is broken right now because some of the fields, section logo does not exist. Yeah. So I need to introduce section logo now. Right. So I haven't used this particular style for a while, and this is precisely what I'm talking about in here. Right, so where is the old wiggle? So there is a logo section, which I probably want to put in here somewhere. Yeah, so what does it say? Field screen frame does not exist. Okay, so frame false. All right, is that it? Section pog. Oh yeah, now I introduced the section pog, and now I need to have that section in here as well in this style. All right, so will it work? Yeah, there we go. So this is how it looks like now. Right. So, and as you can see, I want to have some sort of a logic in here. What if I had some sort of a flag, some sort of a magical flag that allowed me to change the timer to wiggle timer, and on top of that also change the whole composition and offset things accordingly so it kind of fits in there. You know what I'm saying? Right, so I want to have like more complicated things. And because of that, I feel like the ini format that I'm using in here is not going to cut it. It is not going to cut it. What I think I want to introduce something that is heavily inspired by what NixOS is doing and their Nix language. Have you guys seen their Nix language? Right. Have you guys seen it? So it's kind of an interesting language. It looks like JSON if it was a programming language. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? So okay, let's take a look. Nix programming language. So some people saw it. All right. Some people saw it. Nix language basics. Alrighty, so how does it look like? It usually looks like this. It kind of looks like a JSON, but without like string literals, right? The fields are not string literals. It also uses equals and stuff like that, and so on and so forth. Right, so something more complicated. Yeah, there we go. So something more complicated in Nix, right? So it has these objects and stuff like that. But objects can actually cross-refer to each other. To get a gist of what I mean, we probably want to convert this particular style. Let's actually use the old no wiggle one, right? So because that's the production one. So it has, okay, let's use new wiggle one, right? So because it doesn't have that many comments. So how should we call our style language? Some sort of like a, I don't fucking know. We'll see. So essentially, we're going to have a style, right? And it's sort of like an overall top level object, right? So, and in here, we're going to have screen, right? And inside of the screen section, we're going to have frame false. And factor is 130. And factor is basically the value that is multiplied by width and height, right? So originally width and height is 16 by 9, and with the factor, we kind of like increase its value a little bit. Right, so, and let's actually report the values of thumbnail, title, and a link, right? So I don't think I have to specify the BNF or exact precise syntax of this language, because I feel like you can kind of intuitively understand what this language is about by just looking at some examples, right? So here are some examples of this language, right? So how you would express this entire thing in this specific language. So it may have like maybe commas in here or semicolons. I think Nix has semicolons at the ends of the fields, right? So it has the semicolons and stuff like that, but that's besides the point. All of that is, in my opinion, kind of like implementation details. What matters is sort of like an overall vibe of the language, right? So we're kind of going for a particular vibe of the language, you know what I'm saying? So this is how you would describe this kind of shit, right? This is how you would describe this kind of shit. And for example, let's say I want to pin all of these three elements to the same thing. How would I do that? Well, okay, I defined the left value of thumbnail, right? So, and now in here, I would say for the title and link, use the value style thumbnail left. You know, you see what I'm doing? You see what I'm doing? You see what I'm doing? So, and yeah, what's funny is that I think in Nix, you can also have different kind of expressions. Let's say that I want title to be kind of aligned with a thumbnail, but offset by like 10. So what means that is that we now have an AST, some of the nodes of which are expressions that needs to be evaluated. And as far as I know, you can actually create some sort of an evaluation loop, right, where one value depends on another value and that value depends on that value again, and they may start looping. And because of that, isn't Nix actually a lazy language because of that? Do we have any NixOS experts in the chat? Is Nix programming language lazy? Nix is lazy. Okay, so, and that actually makes sense. That actually makes sense because some of the expressions, they might be literally incomputable because of different loops and stuff like that. But if you never really use these values, it's never going to be a problem, right? So, and essentially, I suppose in the main program, you kind of load up this entire AST, right? It's not even AST, it's probably going to be a graph, right? So because you have some things that kind of refer back to themselves, right? So you load this graph, and then within the program, you want to access a specific value. You can say, okay, get something like, I don't know, style, title, title left, and I want to say that this specific thing, I expect it to be a float, right? I expect it to be a float, and essentially what it's going to do is going to get that value if it exists. If it is an expression, it's going to evaluate it, right? Evaluate it, then cache it and return you evaluated thing. Right, you see what I'm saying? So essentially, like, I've got this style, right? So I've got this style, and within it, I basically try to access fields by this specific path, and it's this thing. So it is going to do evaluation, right? So do all of these things and stuff like that, and cache that value and return that value for me. So this is kind of the format that I want to implement. This is the kind of format that I want to implement, and I spent almost an hour explaining what we're going to be doing today. And I'm not even fucking joking, it's been 50 minutes since the start of the stream. It's a literal 1 hour intro. But is it clear what I'm going for, chat? Is it clear what I'm going for? Right, so it's sort of like, it's not going to be exact implementation of Nix, but it's kind of like a vibe, right? So it's sort of like a things that can cross-refer to itself and stuff like that. So a data language that supports evaluation, I guess, and Nix is actually one of such languages. Why not using Jai metaprogramming? You do realize that your message sounds like, why not just use AI? But look, how? What exactly? What exactly? Is just like you throw in a thing. You throw in a thing without providing any valuable insight. Don't be like that, please. Why not use my balls? Exactly. That's actually more valuable suggestion. Like, this is more valuable because it provides insight. Yeah. Why not just do that? Are you German? Нет, блядь. Хуел, сука. Anyways, so let's go ahead and try to implement this shit. So I'm thinking maybe I'm gonna implement it as a separate module, and maybe even open source it. Chat. I may consider open sourcing this language. Nobody will be able to use it because it's going to be implemented in Jai. But honestly, like, I was very hesitant to use Jai on my streams because, like, not everybody has an access to the Jai compiler, right? And I kind of felt bad about it. But then I just realized that I think that actually makes my streams more educational. I think it does. Because all of you motherfuckers are now forced to implement the shit I'm showing on the streams yourself instead of copying what I'm doing. You can't copy what I'm doing. You can't copy what I'm doing. You have to implement it yourself. You must implement it yourself. I'm gonna be bullying you into education. That's it. Like, the reason why I'm using Jai on my streams is because I want to bully you into education, into implementing it yourself in the language of your choice. That's the big strategy in here. So anyways, so we'll see how it goes. Just implement Jai yourself. Well, implementing Jai is kind of difficult, but maybe, like, you probably don't need to implement the entirety of the Jai just to compile a particular library. So when a brain fuck stream. Okay, so somebody who never watched my streams. So let's fucking go, money from the fucking go. How should we call this language? So it's a style language, right? it's a style language. We already have a name for like a CSS. You know, what CSS stands for? Cascade. I think it's a Cascade style sheets. Cascade style sheets. Right. So that's what it is. So this one is gonna be I don't know, CSS. Graph as a GSS. Not bad. Well, let's call it GSS, right? So this is going to be a GSS language. It's a GSS language. Let's go into the module and let's call it GSS, and it's going to be giant. There we go. So I'm going to create like a separate module program where we're playing with GSS. GSS. So I'm importing that. I'm going to be also importing the basic. And let's do the following thing. So I'm going to say, hello, Seaman. Hello, Seaman. And let me try to just run the whole thingy-majingy. Auto run. There we go. Oh, I forgot the semicolon. Spend 3 hours debugging. Hello, Seaman. Okay, cool. So in the module GSS, we're going to have basically graph, right? So we need to define a node. So this is going to be a node, and it's going to be a union, I suppose, right? So, and in Jai, we recently got tagged unions, right? So you can have a node kind, and this is going to be the kind, and it's supposed to be enumeration. So what sort of kinds of nodes we're going to have? What sort of kinds of nodes we're going to have? Let me take a look at did I already remove the style? But anyway, so we can think about, so we're gonna have a value, right? So we're definitely gonna have a value, right? So which just stores the value. And we're going to have objects, right? So objects, which is essential. To be fair, can we just use like any for all of them? It could be just any, right? So essentially, I feel like we don't need shit in any here. I feel like we don't need it. So essentially, we're gonna have a function hello, like load GSS, right? So let's say from file, and so here is gonna be file path, and it's going to be a string, and it just returns you fucking any, right? It just returns you fucking any. And the funny thing about that motherfucking any is that the possible types are table, string, any, right? Then float, string, and boolean. So original any parser supported only three kinds of values: float, strings, and booleans, right? And here we're adding another one, which is a specifically table, string, any. And there you go. So it's just like it will allow you to just support whatever we had in here. So did I already remove that style thing? Yeah, I feel like I did. Yeah, I fucking did. I should have not done that. Yeah. We need to bring back the freaking test thingy that I accidentally deleted. So let's quickly do that. So it was a thumbnail, title, link. All right. So thumbnail, title, link. And oh yeah, so that means I can do style GSS, right? So this is going to be GSS, and in here this is the style, right? This is the style. We're doing all of this shit with the style. So we're trying to be fabulous. There we go. Boom. Boom. Can I? Okay, so this is that. This is okay. So that should be fine, I suppose. Can I? It can't do shit. Okay, GS mode. I enabled the GS mode and it worked like a charm. There you go. So this is what we want to have in here. So yeah, so here is the float. So this is the float, this is the string. It doesn't really have booleans, but we can introduce them, right? So we can say, okay, frame is going to be true for this one. This is the boolean. And this entire thing is an object, right? So essentially, honestly, for the sake of kind of, I don't know, for the sake of consistency, I feel like this has to be equal. Damn, broski, I think it makes sense to actually make it like that. Yeah, so that turns that I think in Nix it also was like that, wasn't it? So where is an example of Nix? Yeah, So there was a equals for the objects in here. So the object itself is also a thing of its own. And I also feel like all of these things should end with a comma, right? So feel like there should be some sort of a comma in here. Right, it kind of makes sense. So it means this is a top level thing. And before JSON. Not really JSON, I already explained why it is not a JSON. It's not a JSON. So another thing we could have done here, so if I want to make these things equal to the other thing, so it has to be style thumbnail left, we could have actually said something like parent thumbnail left. So essentially that makes this thing copy pastable around and stuff like that. Or maybe not even parent, but super. Oh, it even highlights that. Look at that. We can do shit like that. But anyway, so this is going to be style. So, and another kind of value on top of this four, we probably need to introduce an expression. Yeah. Which will require tagged union, because that expression, yeah, so it's a separate kind of thing, but let's actually not introduce it yet, right? Let's not introduce it. Okay, so this is the kind of thing that we need to have in here, right? Might as well, by the way, create an alias for something like that, right? So it's basically any in here. So this is GSS that we managed to load in here, and this thing also tells us whether it was successful or not. This entire thing is not implemented yet, right? So it's going to be something like to do like that. There you go. So, and we need to do things like this, like a get GSS field, and it's going to get the GSS, and we need to specify a path, right? So in case of any, it was actually super simple because there was only two layers, right? So it's basically section and a field. So you could have like just basically two strings in here, string and field. But now we're going to have like this graph that can be arbitrarily deep. It can be arbitrarily deep, which means that we need to provide an array, like path has to be an array of strings, but we can actually use variadics. So, and in here, we can maybe even specify the something like a type, I feel like. Or maybe we can say that it is allowed for that field to not exist. And because of that, you have to provide a fallback of a specific type. You must provide a fallback in case it doesn't exist. Right, so, but there should be also a way to check whether the field, particular field exists or not, right? So there should be a way to check. So because of that, let's actually go with the following thing. So this is going to be the type, right? So, and what you will get a pointer to that specific type. So, and essentially, the API of a GSS file is going to consist of just this. Do functions, load GSS from file, and get GSS, not really sure a field, but let's call it a value, right? So get a GSS value, and it will just basically get the value by the path, and if there's any unevaluated expressions, it should also evaluate them lazily, right? So yeah, that's basically the entirety of the thing. So the entirety of the API. And the simplicity of this API is actually very important. It's very important. So assert false, so it's going to be to do get GSS value. There we go. And here we're returning a null for now. So the question is, how do we fucking parse this shit? So the first step in parsing such a complex thing is the tokenization, Alexa, yeah. But we could have used we could use STB Alexa. So all of these things are kind of like C tokens. We can just use them, but we're using Jai. we're using Jai, which means that we need to create the bindings for those things. We need to create the bindings. But stbclexer is a header-only library. How do you create bindings for Jai? Well, in Jai and Jai, there are stb image libraries, right? So, and they are literally separate folders, right? If you go in here, so there are builds for Linux, macOS, and Windows for stb image, and what people in Thokla did, they literally built a static library of stb image and a dynamic library. There's a very good reason for that, right? So you have stb image that is built statically, and you have stb image that is built dynamically. Who knows why they have a dynamic version of stb image? Who knows why? It's a very interesting question. Yes, people know that because it needs to be able to run at compile time for compile time execution. So the way compile time execution in Jai works is that it literally dynamically loads the DLL and just like runs, like calls to functions in DLL at compile time. So stb image is actually runnable at compile time in Jai because of that. So we need to kind of do a similar thing in here. So, and there's a very interesting pattern in Jai, which was introduced by John and people from Thokla, I suppose, which is that modules, they have these generate scripts. They have this generate scripts which generate binary versions of the libraries, right? So, and you never really build dependencies at the time of compilation of your project. You pre-build dependencies and you kind of commit them along with your project. That's kind of the Thokla style, which is rather interesting, right? So because you usually don't modify your dependencies very often, right? You might as well just pre-build them and commit them into the repo. But yeah. So, which is not particularly great for open source, but again, Thokla people are not particularly open source people, so they don't give a shit, which is admirable. And to be fair, open source is dead, right? So open source is dead anyway. Like, have you seen GitHub? Chat, have you seen GitHub? Have you looked in the pull request of famous projects? So it's just like it's all noise. It's all wasteland. So time for end, yeah. Bloody mess. It's a fucking bloody mess. So yeah. A lot of projects, they're probably gonna stop accepting contributions at all. Claudia! Claudia! If AI is so good, why doesn't it suck my... Okay, let's make a small break. You know, guys, let's actually make a small break. I wanna make a small break, and we're gonna make another cup of tea. And after that, we're going to try to tokenize this motherfucker. Sounds good? Sounds good? Sounds good? We are back. So let's actually bring the stbclexer. So it's going to be from nothing, stb. Oh, well, I mean, I probably have to do something like stb. stbclexer. Clexer. Let's take it raw. Let's take it raw. All right, and let's maybe bring it in here. So we're gonna try to follow the Thokla sort of like conventions, right? So we're supposed to create a folder, stbclexer, right? And I say Thokla, not John, because as far as I know, like a lot of modules were created by Raphael as well, right? So it's sort of like not specifically John, you know, approach. It's like their entire company approach, if I understand correctly, but maybe I'm not. So what do I know? Right, we need to have something like generate, right, generate Jai. And luckily, I don't plan to run this application on anything except Linux, so I probably don't even need to build it for Windows or macOS or any of these toy operating systems. But anyway, so as far as I know, in Jai, there is a module called build CPP. Believe it or not, there is an entire module called build CPP. Look at that. This module helps build C/C++ libraries and programs from Jai. It is not intended to replace C++ build tools for complex projects. It doesn't even try to do anything fancy. But it's handy if you quickly need to compile a handful of C/C++ files into an executable, a static library, or a dynamic library without wanting to think about the platform specifics. C/C++. It can only be run at compile time for now, since it uses compiler report. C modules GUI generate, or modules generate a bindings first Jai for usage examples. So, but I mean, we can just take a look at this huge ass function, which is called build CPP, which is you're supposed to provide like output base name, then variadic files, the kind of executable you want to build, right? So this is a build type. We can take a look at it. Static library, dynamic library, executable, object file, and there's a lot of other parameters in here, but all of them are optional. So you can kind of specify them, you know, basically omit them. And let's go ahead and try to do that. So essentially, we're going to run it at compile time, right? So one important thing we have to do when we run a program at compile time and we do not plan to actually produce an executable out of the currently running meta program is that we have to set its build option during compilation and say, do not do any output, please. Right, so essentially that turns the program, the meta program we're going to be running, into a script. Chat, I'm fucking dying. Anyways, so we want to produce some sort of output. So the output we want to produce is stbc lexa.a, right? And the input file is going to be stbc lexa.h. The type of the file we want to produce in here is essentially static library, right? So we can do static library. So whether we need a debug, let's actually say that we do need a debug, right? So let's include some debug information in here. There's a lot of additional things in here, but I suppose we can just not do them, right? So build CPP. So does it return anything? It does return Boolean, look at that. So we can actually say okay, or maybe we can do the following thing. If it's not okay, just exit with 1. There you go, exit with 1. So, and that should be theoretically enough. I can try to do something like generate Jai. And yeah, so for this specific option, I need a compiler, right? So this is going to be a compiler. And on top of that, for build CPP, I need build CPP. So is it going to do anything? So it didn't like something in particular procedure called missing type. That is fascinating. Why are you telling me? Oh, maybe because I have to say type. Yeah, because it's a variadic, so it doesn't really know where the variadic stops. So that's totally understandable. So what do we have in here? Exit. I suppose exit comes from basic, so let's do that. And something still doesn't compile. Okay, this is very interesting. Ooh. Yeah, fascinating. So out. Well, that kind of makes sense. If this is a cross-platform tool, the extension is also kind of a platform-specific thing, so you probably should not provide it. Okay, so it still didn't compile. So there's no such file or whatever. I think I understand what is going on. So build CPP is kind of like not aware of the fact that when you have H, compilers like Clang will try to compile pre-compiled headers instead of treating this entire thing as a C file. Because of that, we probably need to add an extra flags in there, right? So in the build CPP, where do we have extra flags? So here is the extra. So this is extra, and I suppose the way we provide the extra is by saying something like, okay, so the extra flag, treat this entire thing as C. So there we go, and that worked. So it also produces some garbage, but apart from that, here is the A file. But as you can see, it's kind of small. This is because it didn't include any implementations, right? So one thing we probably want to do is to basically add the macro, ask this entire thing to include implementations, right? So let's actually define this thing like that. We're including implementations, and look at that chunky file. Look at that chunky file, 22 kilobytes, 22 kilobytes, pretty cool. But now chat, I can duplicate this line and then say, okay, build a dynamic library as well, mother flipper. Look at that. Boom, dynamic fucking library. And all of that, by the way, again, cross-platform. On Windows, build CPP will try to use some SVC. On macOS, it will try to do its own thing, and so on and so forth, right? So it kind of tries to abstract away from that stuff. It's not like a full-on build system for C/C++, but it's kind of like for simple things like this, right? So for future reference, there is a convenience polymorphs for it, CPP static lib and CPP dynamically. Thank you so much. So I suppose it just like predefines these kind of things. Okay, so, and I suppose now we need to create a module, right? So essentially, module.jai acts like init py, right? So it's basically init py of jai. So, and in here, I suppose we just want to basically define some of the functions that we need in here. So we need to define stbc lexa, which is going to be the library, right? So this is going to be the library. And we just say stbc lexa, and hopefully it will automatically pick up that specific library. So we need to define the structure of the stb lexa. So we need to define this entire thing. We could have probably used bindings generator. Should we use a bindings generator? Chat, what do you guys think? Should we just use a bindings generator for this thing? Let's give it a try. So yes, sir. Okay, so let's try to use bindings generator, because I feel like it's gonna be convenient. So let's take a look. So here is the generate. Where is the generate bindings? What's the function? Yeah. So generate bindings, and there should, yeah, there we go. So here's the function. So file name, and there's a bindings options. Okay, so that should be just like one function here, right? To generate the bindings, degenerate the bindings. It's gonna be bindings generator. Okay, cool. So let's take a look at this thing. A bindings generator. So this is a struct. So this is the options, I suppose. And in here, yeah. So there's a target OS, blah 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 blah. So it needs libraries. Right, it needs libraries, and I suppose this is what we have to put in there. Not quite sure what the fuck is a library though. So file name identifier. Okay. Leave empty to auto-generate. From file name. Okay. So options, libraries, array add. And what we need to add in here is stbc lexa. I'm not quite sure, right? So do I just do it like that? So do I have to specify the, yeah, not quite sure. But let's leave it like that. So source files, if empty, I feel like I need to take a look at the examples because it doesn't particularly make much sense to me. So, so this is the first, generate bind, there we go. So here's the function to generate bindings. And in here, so here's the libraries, yes, just a file name. So H goes into source files. So then we can have extra flags and stuff like that. I suppose we won't need them. All right, so I think I figured it out. Generate, here it is. So this is going to be file name, then array add options. What was the source? Where is the, yeah, source files? And source files is going to be stbc lexa.h, and there you go, we're using that stuff. File name is output file name. Okay, so I suppose it's going to be module.jai. Log results, yeah, log them, please log them, and if it didn't succeed, we're just going to exit with 1. All right, so that looks about right. Let's go ahead and do that. Oh, right, three functions. There was only 3 functions. Okay. Oh yeah, so here is the structure. Here is the structure. the initial, okay. Oh, that's convenient. It even can, all right. I didn't expect it. Yeah, it's actually not that much. The entirety of the library is just like one structure, like two functions or whatever. What was that? Yeah, 3 functions, 2 structures, and 1 enumeration. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. So yeah, what that means, chat, what that means is that I should be able to now just import stbc lexa like so, and let's actually give it a try. I'm going to just do fujai, and it compiled. So how can I create lexa? Right, so let's create L stbc lexa, right? stbc lexa, and where's the module? stbc lexa module, and we need to initialize this entire thing, right? So we need to initialize. So let's go ahead and do that. We have to provide the pointer. So somebody on the break was saying that it would be easier to just write the lexa ourselves rather than writing bindings. We already finished writing bindings. This is how easy it is to write bindings in Java. Just saying, right? So it's like there's a bindings generator which is actually like well maintained and kept up to date, and it's very convenient to use. You just like point at libraries and just generates your code, right? But anyways, so we need to read some stuff. Let's read entire file from the data folder, style GSS, right? So this is gonna be content, okay, and if it's not okay, let's just like exit with non-zero exit code. Might as well print some things just to get an idea, right? So, so let's say this is an input path, right? Input path, like that. So sen contains bytes. Input path content count, right? And here let's exit with 69, and let's go ahead and just run the whole thing. So let's remove that. Read entire file. To read entire file, you need a file module, stbc lexa. Okay, so it's not as easy as I thought. stb lexa. So it's, yeah, it's just called different, but it's fine. All right, so 541 bytes. So we managed to successfully read this entire thing. Cool. So now we need to initialize this motherfucker. So input stream is content data, and where it ends is content data plus content count. So we need to allocate a string store. Let's go ahead and do that. So string store, let's allocate like, you know, 1 kilobyte for am I doing that correctly? I think I'm not doing that correctly. I think this is how you do that. I feel like this is how you do that. Look at that. So string store, let's do something like string store data and string store count. There we go. We initialized the lexa. We initialized the lexa. Now, so the next thing we need to do is to get the token. Right? So this is going to be the token. So this function no, this one returns non-zero if a token is parsed or 0 on the end of file. Okay, so this is weird. So this comment belongs to this function. I think the bindings generator kind of, yeah. So the problem with stbc lexa is that in its documentation, yeah, this comment belongs to this function, and the bindings generator got confused by that, so it actually attached. This is funny. Right, so the bindings generator tries to preserve the comments as well, but in this specific case, it got confused what comment, what function and what comment, how they associate it and stuff. It's kind of funny, but anyway. So while we have that, right, so here is the lexa, and now we can go ahead and print the token. So this is going to be L token, and I'm going to just go ahead and run it, and it worked. So we're already using stb lexa. Right. It wasn't that difficult, and it didn't take that much time to write the bindings and stuff like that. So it's very cool. It's pretty cool. But anyways, So if we want to have some other things, right, so we might as well do L token, right? So, and in here, in this specific case, L token might be equal to class ID, right? If it is a class ID, we can say that it's I don't fucking know, man. So we need to print it as a string, right? So we're printing it as a string, so that means it's a L string. So something like that. Then the other kinds of tokens we care about in here. If it's something else, I suppose. So L token less than 256. In case it is less than 256, we can actually try to treat it as U8. So it's going to be literally a character. Hopefully it will be treated as a character in this specific case, but I'm not 100% sure. So otherwise, we can say this is kind of like unknown. And it's going to be L token. So let's call this an ID. All right. So what do we have in here? This one has to be equals. So, this one is interesting. So what is it? Yeah, so since string is kind of like a reserved type, so we had to put underscore in here. All right, that's totally fine. So there is no dot, class ID. So you're telling me that, well, I mean, it didn't remove the, am I going crazy? Dereferencing, unary dot dereference only much to enum types, but here is trying to, blядь. Well, we can try to, yeah, so can we cast this entire thing to the collects or something? Or I don't fucking know, like how would we do that? Oh, right, so that kind of worked. Didn't, okay. So the thing about the string in here is that it's a uint. Not uint, it's pointer to U8. It's a pointer to U8. So that means we need to convert it to string to be able to display this entire stuff. All right, there we go. So we got thumbnail and so on and so forth. This is, yeah, I need to remove this thing to fully see. So this is a style, and this one didn't properly work, by the way. It's a bit bizarre because, yeah, I suppose it's, how do I, can I convert U8 to a string? I feel like I could have converted it to a string, but I mean, yeah, I can create as char. Do you know what char means, my friend? You don't know what char means. Okay, so here's the string. So I need to kind of do shit like that, and then pointer to x and 1. And obviously it won't be able to infer that, so I have to probably do something like this. L token, count, first comes the count and then the pointer. Yeah, holy shit. But I mean, I managed to do that. By the way, I would like to maybe say unknown, so I can instantly see all of these things. Unknown, so this is more like a float. Yeah. So I suppose we need to handle floats in here. So where is the float? Yeah, float literal. Okay. And it's 259. Yeah, so it's a float literal. Let's do, so class float literal. And in here, what we're gonna be doing is L, was it a float? Yeah, real number. It's called real number. All right. Okay. That seems to be all right. Then unknown. A line is a string, if I remember correctly. Right. So that means Clex string or Dick string, right? So because it's a double quote, right? Something like that. I have no idea why some of them prefixed, some of them are not prefixed. It's a little bit weird, but okay. Right. So L string. Underscore in here. Again, I have to probably do toString. Otherwise it's not. Yeah, there we go. Do we have anything unknown? There we go. We managed to identify all of the tokens in here, and we have tokenized everything successfully, chat. We tokenized everything successfully. Absolute budgeting. Absolute poggers, I would even say. So now we need to write some code that kind of consumes the expected token, right? So we need to have some sort of a function, right? Expect token, which accepts the lexa, obviously, right, by the pointer, stb lexa, and expected token. And in here, what do they use as the type of the token? It's S64, right? So this is an expected token. And in here, it is going to basically return like okay or not. Right, so that's what it's going to do. Okay or not. So we also should be able to like look ahead and everything, but yeah, we'll see how it goes. So let's implement the following thing. So we're gonna get the token, right? So we're gonna get the token, and then if L token not equal to expected token, right? If it's not equal to expected token, we have to print the error message, right? So we have to, yeah, we need to also keep track of the file path, right? Of the file from like which file we're tokenizing. Otherwise, we just won't be able to properly do that. So we need to grab the location of the token. So as far as I know, in the module, there is a get location. There we go. So you can just grab the location. So here is the lexa. Then you have to specify where the token is located. Within the structure, we have the pointer to either first character of the token or last character of the token. We can use something like L where first, that's the location of the first character, and we need to allocate this thing on a stack, because this is where we're going to be returning this entire thing. Right, there we go. So this is how we get the location. For some reason I can't just chop off this string. So we got the string. So now we can say this is the file, right? So this is the file path. And within the location we should have a row and a column, right? So something like that, a row and a column. And we have line number and line offset, so this is what they correspond to. Lock line number, lock line offset. And now we should be able to just print some stuff in here, like unexpected token, expected blah, but got blah. There we go. And we need to specify them in here, and here we're going to actually return false, like that. Otherwise, if everything went okay, we're going to return true. So that's basically the function that I always use when I parse things, right? So because I want to expect the token. If I encountered something unexpected, I want to throw an error right away. So we'll probably also want to kind of factor out this thing, right? So because like grabbing the location of an error is kind of tedious, right? So we want to automate that a little bit. Are the commas tokenized correctly? Yes, they are tokenized correctly because they're recognized as single characters. Yeah, look at that. So we detected them. So usually they are like kind of punctuation marks. Thank you so much for all of these subs. Thank you so much for all of subs. I wish one day I'll get all this money, but this is very unlikely. Black Power 3000, thank you so much. Simantra, thank you so much for 20 format with the message 23 months ad free. That's a budgeting. That is budgeting in my book indeed. So okay. Now, what we need to do, I should probably start parsing things. I'm not sure from which end I should start parsing, right? So, because if you take a look at this thing, what is that? What's this top level thing? If you think about it, this looks like a field. This looks like a field of an object, right? Because, so imagine that object starts with a curly brace, right? It starts with a curly brace. Okay, you consume the curly brace, and now you have a sequence of fields, which is a key equals and some value, comma. Key equals some value, comma. So in here, this top level looks like a field. So there is a top level implicit table. Some sort of a top level implicit table. So that's what it is. So which means that you need to be able to like parse object body, right? Parse object body. So we provide the file path and also stb lexa, right? You can see that. And you probably need to provide a pointer to the object that you're currently parsing, right? So that's what you need to do. Let's actually say object is going to be basically table from a string to any, right? So that's what we're doing in here. So furthermore, maybe for this specific thing, we should actually create an object. So let me basically make something like that. So this is object like that. And the possible types that we're going to be supporting, are this. Look at that. So it's an object, float, and string, and object is a table from string to any. Right? And this is how we create sort of like recursive objects and everything. This is how we do that. So parse object, and obviously this entire thing may return true or false. And yeah, so what we expect token. And we're gonna put this thing in here. And what kind of token we're expecting here? We're expecting class ID, right? So that's what we're expecting. And obviously, if this entire thing is going to fail, we just return false, right? If we succeeded, we've got a key, right? We've got a key. And the key is located in here. The key is located in here. But on the next get token, that thing is going to be invalidated. That thing is going to be invalidated, which means that I need to copy this string. So copying the string is going to create a value on a heap, right? So which means that it's going to be kind of tricky to manage that memory. But the idea here is that I expect you to basically run this entire parsing in a context of a pool allocator. So essentially, I expect you to create a pool allocator, set it to the current context, so I can allocate as much as I want, and all of that is going to be allocated within that pool allocator, which you can then clean up. So because of that, I don't really care if I'm allocating in dynamic memory or anything. So it's just like, it's going to be your problem, right? Not mine. Yeah, and this is how I already do in the application, right? So in the application, I have a so-called config pool, right? So this is a config pool, and everything related to configuration is actually allocated there. So there's a very funny syntax in Jai is that you basically call a function, then provide the parameters, then double comma, and then you can specify different parameters of the global context that's going to be set. That means that basically this entire function is going to be executed in a context where the allocator is replaced with this pool allocator. So whatever this function allocates is going to be allocated in this allocator, which I can then quickly reset. So, and it doesn't care where it allocates, it just sheds out as much as possible, but all of that goes in here. So it's basically arena allocator stuff. So this is how I expect this entire thing to use. But anyways, so I just copied it into dynamic memory and I don't give a shit. So then after that, so where is this GSS? So I got the key and I expect equals, right? So I basically expect equals. So that means I can just do something like that. I suppose I can just put something like this, right? Expect equals. And after that, I need to parse a value, right? So because object maps a string to any. So we need some sort of a function, which is parse value, right? So it will accept this thing. and it's going to return a value which is any, right? And also an indication whether it's failed or not or whatever. So now in here it's not implemented yet. Let's actually do an assertion false parse value to do, and here we're gonna just return like whatever, and then I'm going to do value okay, right, value okay, parse value file path L, right, and if okay it was not okay, I return false. Now I parsed key and value, right? Look at that, I parsed key and value, and what I have to do, I now have to add them to this specific object, right? So since it's a hash table, let's actually take a look at the hash table. So table add, so here it is. So this is how we add things. This is how we add things. So object goes here, here's the key, here's the value, and we just add them. So what if the key already exists? So what if the key already exists? That's a very interesting question. So we probably need to check for that. So table find pointer. So we do table find pointer, and we can always check whether it exists or not. Or maybe there's also contains. But at the same time, like, I'm not really sure, like, do I want to like provide the location of where that thing was defined? But that means I need to keep track of that location. Maybe at some point I'm going to do that. But anyways, so this is an object. This is the key, and since I know the key in here, maybe I can check for that. If object already contains the key, we may want to try to report an error, redefinition or whatever. Report redefinition error. Report the definition error. All right, so since here we know that, you know, so after this check, we know that the key doesn't exist, we can just add that thing in here. But here's the thing. We parse an object body, which means that it may consist of several fields, which means this entire thing must be in a loop. It must be in the loop. So that's kind of important, I think. It's kind of important. It must be in a loop. And we also need to determine when to stop that loop. When to stop that loop. So, and at the end in here, you probably going to have comma, or maybe not have a comma. So we have to be kind of like, why do we need comma? Like, for real? It's just like, is it necessary? Well, I mean, it's going to be kind of necessary. Yeah. So the comma, at least in here, is going to be kind of necessary, because what if I do plus A and then there is no comma? And it's kind of difficult to tell where is the end of the expression and start of the next field and stuff like that. So it's going to be, yeah, especially for shit like that, right? So like, what does it even mean? Yeah, so we need commas. We need commas. Should we make the commas mandatory, right? So dangling comma in here should be fine. But at the same time, if we make it mandatory, that means we'll have to put a comma in here as well. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. So at the end, it has to be like optional, but I don't want to do an extra logic for an optional thing. And I just like, I don't want to do that. Add a comma operator, yeah, whatever. Okay, so you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna just make the comma mandatory for now, and I'm not gonna give a shit. So that's how we're gonna go about that. So what's funny is that what we need to do at the beginning of the loop, we need to check whether we reached the end of the object. We need to check whether we reach the end of the object. How are we going to be doing that? We're going to take the token. So we need to look ahead a little bit, chat. We need to look ahead. So we need to do something like save the L, right? So I'm saving the L, right? I'm saving it. Then where is my get next? Get token. So, and if L is equal to closing curly, right? Closing curly, or I think also there is a variant of it being equal to the end of file. I just basically return true, right? So we kind of reached the end of this entire thing. If we haven't reached the end, I'm basically restoring, and this is how you dereference the whole thing. I'm basically restoring the saved L and continue parsing as usual. That's kind of the idea. My internet went down. You don't need char anymore, by the way. What do you mean by that? I don't believe you, my friend. What the fuck are you saying? So it basically infers depending on it. Why? What? 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 Oh my god. Yeah. We're doing the thing where strings will implicitly cast to U8 if they're one character long. This would eliminate the need to use char in most programs. So before you would have said this, now you can say this. This conversion invokes an implicit cast. So if you have an overload that takes a string and another that takes a U8, you will get the string in that case, because implicit casts are less exact match, whatever that means, unless you explicitly cast or use char, pound char. Know that this cast, it's kind of complicated, but I believe you, so I don't have to do that shit anymore. Thank you so much. Interesting. So yeah, we probably don't need to do that scheiße. Probably don't need to do that scheiße as well. And probably don't need to do that scheiße. Okay, so and here we probably have to return false or whatever. I outlined this code, but I would like to also maybe print some errors. Okay, so let's actually report error. So in here, I probably want to format the thing somehow, but I'm not quite sure how we're going to be doing all of that. So we need to provide this stuff as parameters. Then let me find how you implement print. Print blah blah. So you have to provide a format string and arguments and so on and so forth. This is what you have to do in here. Format string, arguments, and so on and so forth. Okay, let me grab this thing. I'm grabbing this thing and taking the location, first character, so on and so forth. Then I'm just printing, I'm gonna just print that, right? So it's gonna be file path, location, and so on and so forth. Then I need to do print format string, and then I expand args like this. So which means that now what I can do, instead of writing all of that stuff, I specify obviously that format string would be just error, but without some things in here. Maybe I will also automatically just print new line in here as well, so I don't have to do that anymore, right? So file path, locations, and stuff like yeah. So now I have to just specify what is expected on what we got, right? So expected is this token, but got this token. But it's kind of a useful information because it's going to be just numbers. Yeah, there we go. So we have that. So redefinition, and now here I can say redefinition of field that, and this is going to be just the key. See? So now we can report errors and we can immediately return false. It's pretty convenient. It's pretty convenient. So now let's try to recompile the whole thing. and just go to the compilation errors. Okay, so we go in here, so semicolon. So we don't have to do that. Then here, it didn't like something. Attempt to cast not yet type literal to any, which is not valid. Any needs to know the concrete type of the strict array. Okay, so what do you want from me then? 69. Okay. So table, let's import hash table in here. So I'm just going to the compilation errors, right? So nothing particularly special, nothing particularly special. L token. Okay, so do I have to do cast U8? Well, I mean, yeah. Can I just cast, or maybe XX? Is that going to work though? I'm actually not sure. Well, I'm gonna use char just in case. Yeah, I'm gonna use char. So this is XX. It's probably not end of file. EOF. It's kind of interesting. So there's a clax and there's not so clax. Unary dereference. I'm not quite sure. Like, where do I put that? Where do I put that? Okay. Mismatch level of indirections. Okay. So we have to do something like that. All right. Go into the compile. All right. So this is what I have to do. Fuck. Only matches the enum, but there is a trying to match S64. This is weird. So enum, this enum is U32, but then for the tokens we're using, yeah, there's a little bit of a mismatch in here. So this stuff is that. Can we just say that this thing is S64? Can we do that? We should be able to do that. And then, nah, it didn't work. Fuck. So U32 probably won't be able to say it like that. Can I cast it to S64 just directly? What do you want from me? Ah, blad, suka. I think I know. I'm being an idiot. I apologize. So this is what. Yeah, I figured it out. Chat, I figured it out. Don't worry about it. Okay, so string. Yeah, this one is interesting, right? So because it's a C string, so we have to do toString, right? So which will convert it to size string, and then we're gonna copy this string. Okay. So table contains and undeclared identifier. So this is because we have to just do hash table like this. So and this is gonna be char obviously, and this is gonna be char obviously. So this is yeah. Okay, so this one has to be Klex. I know that. And this one of them is going to be just like, yeah, there we go. We managed to compile it. Look at that chat. Look at that chat. Look at that chat. Look at that chat. Okay, so we haven't finished yet, by the way. Interestingly, we can try to run it right away already and just fail at something, right? So there you go. And it didn't fucking work. I'm an idiot. So we need to parse the body. So let's create something like root, which is a table, which is an object, right? So it's an object. And parse object body. So what do we... Okay, so file path. It's actually input path. Then the lexa pointer to the lexa. And then we also specify the root, pointer to the root. And if it fails for whatever reason, we just exit with 1. There we go. So this is what we're doing. And it's supposed to crash. And it crashes at parse value. Look at that. This is very interesting. So this is where we have to do look ahead one more time. So because depending on what we see, we have to switch different modes. So GCC, there we go. So if we look ahead and we saw open curly, that means we need to parse the object. If we saw, for example, true or false, that means it's a boolean. If it's a float, it's a float. If it's a string, it's a string, and so on and so forth. Do you see where I'm going? You see where I'm going? This is basically what we have to do in here. Yeah. So we look ahead, and then if like depending on what kind of thing it is, so it's going to be token equal to that. So we're going to do case. So it doesn't even have to look ahead. Like we can just, yeah, so we can just directly do this kind of thing. And in this specific case, it's going to be collects, what is that? Curly brace, right? So we can do char open curly brace. So in that specific case, what we're doing, we need to allocate the object, right? So this is going to be just the object. And then we are parsing the body of the object, right? So we're just parsing the body of the object. We already go in recursive, right? We're closing the loop. We're closing the loop. We're automating programming. Look at that. Right. If it failed, we have to return like, I don't fucking know what we have to return in cases. Like, is there some, like, can I put null in here? And then just like false. Okay, so something like that. So, and then we have to expect the closing curly brace, right? So something like that. So this is what we're expecting in here. There we go. So another thing that we may have in here is float, right? So it's going to be float lit. Collects float float lit. And interestingly, I'm not quite sure when I do shit like this, chat, look at that. So 69. So it's a bit sus, you know what I'm saying? Print. Import 69. So if I take a look at the pointer of this thing, what is it pointing to? It's pointing to here. Is it the same? Like, what's it pointing to? Okay, so this is going to be integer, and let's say y is any equal to x. We'll take a look at y. 69. Value pointer. Okay. So you're telling me when I do something like that, any points at the stack, is that what you're telling me, Brovskis? Is that what you're telling me? This is no bueno. Any is kind of sassy. Yeah, it's kind of sassy. So I suppose, yeah, we probably have to do some shit in here, but that's fine. So basically, I can do something like value new float, right? New float. In fact, I can do value any, right? Then value pointer. Well, type is going to be float. I probably have to do type info. Custom type info, right? So this is going to be that. Value pointer is going to be new float, right? Then what I want to do is a real number. Oh shit, I'm losing information about the pointer. That's kind of the problem here. Okay. Oh boy, so that means I probably want to do it like that then. New float. Okay. Then value like that. Then what I want to return in here is, I suppose, value and cast type info float. That's what I want to do. Kind of weird. What you're building? It's kind of an interesting, weird question. Building. So you are Y Combinator kind of person, because the only Y Combinator people using the word building when they're referring to software. Okay, so this is going to be null. I'm making a parser for my custom language. And the reason why Y Combinator kind of people like to use the word building is because they're desperately trying to equate software development job to you know, just like building things, like building bridges or making buildings and stuff like that. They're trying to trivialize this entire thing, right? Because they can't comprehend, you know, anything beyond just managing of resources of building structures and stuff. Anyways, so this entire thing, so what does it say? Oh, it's a float 32, so we have to do float 64. All right, so this has to be returned, and I have to actually put a true in here. So does it have to be any? I feel like, yeah. So do I have to type mismatch? Oh yeah, it has to be 64. Okay, do I have to do this kind of stuff? I feel like it's in a different order. Yeah, there you go. Cool. Can I do shit like that? Yeah, hell yeah, brother. All right, so we figured that. I think this is how we're supposed to do that. You know, though I would like it to be just float. Yeah, we'll probably have to cast it. Yeah, I want to keep it 32 bits. Though I'm not really sure if it's a good idea. So Klex, the other one is going to be, I suppose, Klex ID. Let's do, yeah, it has to be Klex ID. All right, and here, what we have to do is, let's create an ID. Copy string to string L string. So, and we can have different things in here. This one can be true, right? So then this one can be false. It's kind of a similar situation. In case of a true, right? What we're doing is just true. It's kind of weird that I have to do it like that, but okay. So fine. Fine. So this is going to be false. Can I fold through? And probably not. In case if it's something else, yeah, we have to like, yeah. So this is where we have to start parsing the expressions and stuff like that. But I'm gonna do that a little bit later. I believe the current term is code extruding. Yeah. So, wasn't there like, oh my god, was somebody posted recently on our Discord servers the article from Dijkstra about radical novelty? Right, so just like some things are so radically novel that people just like literally can't comprehend and trying to grasp on reality, comparing to just, you know, things that they see day to day, and it never went away, right? So, so it's just like they really want to like software development to be just about building structures, right? So we need to build a structure. So we have a schema, we have an architect, we have resources, right? So we allocate resources, schedule, like they really want it to be, but it's not that. It gets so fucking ridiculous sometimes, right? So they really want the software development to be just about like, it's like building structures. We're building structures. We're building. So dumb. Holy fuck. That's why all sorts of software is shit, by the way. Because people really think that it's like constructing. It's a fucking construction. Sculpting, yeah. Anyways. So true, false. Well, we have to like a report error. Report error. Man, I'm glad that I don't work in that industry anymore. I hope I can stay away from that industry for as long as possible, but I'm not fucking sure if I'll be able to. I really want to stay away from it for as long as possible because it's insufferable. Holy fuck. The level of stupidity in software, in tech in general, is just insufferable. It's just like, holy fuck. The most amazing thing is that for how long this level of stupidity is economically viable. That's the real miracle, right? People talk about like miracle, oh, AI or some computers being fast. No. The real miracle of tech is for how long this level of stupidity is fucking economically viable. That's the real miracle of tech. Like, I can't comprehend that. Like, how? How is that even possible? What is this magic? The resilience of software is just like, it's capable of tolerating an immense amount of stupidity. It's insane. Cliffhanger, yeah. Anyways, whatever. Okay. So let's say error, unexpected identifier. Identifier, we can specify that identifier. So it's going to be ID and return null false, something like that. Okay, so is it going to work? So this is, we're working with you know, float, that, and that. Okay, cool. So I think I kind of do a similar thing in inipasa, in my inipasa. So yeah, and for strings, yeah, so for strings I will also kind of do a similar stuff. So maybe I will be able to maybe even copy paste that, but not really, I'm not sure. Anyways, so now what we're going to be doing is just like case collects dict string. And yeah, so it's toString. We take that specific string, copy string, and this is going to be, I don't know, let's call it string. Am I copying a string? I'm not kind of sure. So what I would like to do is maybe allocate a new string in here. So then I can dereference, yeah, I can do something like that. Like I can do something like that. And then I can return that value in here. Like so. And this is going to be just a string. So otherwise, we can say unexpected token, right? So, file path. Unexpected token. You can specify that as the token. So this one has to be unreachable, I suppose. Unreachable. Cool. Okay. So and I suppose we managed to parse something, but we can't really see that. By the way, let's actually try to run it. Auto run. All right, so it failed. Unexpected token, expected blah, blah, blah. Okay, this one is interesting. 125. Expected 125. And so what is 125? So STB. It's kind of, yeah, it's kind of difficult to see. So, that's annoying, man. And they don't tell us. So 125, it's a ASCII, right? Isn't it? I think it is. It's a ASCII. 125. It's a. Doesn't make much sense. Expected, but got 44. What? Chat, I think I fucked up something immensely. Like, what the fuck? Okay, can we simplify the whole thing? So if I comment out this entire stuff, it's fine. So this is empty. Let's try to do foo 69. It's a dec, not oct. Okay, whatever. So if I put something like that, is it going to do the thing? It managed to do the thing. So we can now try to maybe iterate the root. So for root, and I'm gonna do the following thing. I'm gonna print stuff like that. Right, so it index it. Okay, so we got the thing more or less correctly. Cool. That is rather cool. So what about an empty object? If I'm pointing at an empty object. Yeah, so it kind of failed in here. And I don't quite remember like why did it fail in here. I kind of made all of these things mandatory. So I feel like so this didn't work out properly. I feel like this didn't work out properly. So ASCII and 25. So it expects closing curly brace, but got 44, which is comma. So parse, so something in the parse object. Okay. So if you I see. Well, that's bizarre. So essentially, okay, I feel like we should simply not do that because object body will consume that for us. We expect this to consume this for us. Okay, this is what we expect. All right, and it reached the unreachable. Nice. How did it fucking do that? Because it's okay. Yeah. No, false. Okay. There is a default. John, what the fuck? It's probably some way. Well, no. What? No, it's probably here. Okay, I see. Chat, everything's fine. Everything's fine. I probably have to allocate. Okay, I have to allocate the object in here on the stack. So then I don't have to provide the pointer to that. And when I'm returning, yeah. Okay. I think it's fine. Chat, everyone come down. Chat. Everyone come down. So this has to be a value. Hell yeah, brother. Okay. We figured it out. Chat. That is correct. So 0.59, and I'm gonna put it like that. So yeah. So let's remove that as well. Hell yeah, brother. Hell yeah. We need to recursively, yeah, so this is a lot of shit. But what we need to do in here, chat, we need to recursively traverse that. So let's create something like dump GSS tree. So, and in here, right, so we're gonna do root. It's gonna be any. Yeah. It's gonna be any. And so what we have to do, root. How does print, like, I mean, I can do type, but then can I just do shit like object, float, string, boolean, and here unreachable, assert false, unreachable. So here we also want to keep track of the level, how deep we are, right? So how deep we are inside of this thing. And when I encounter an object, right? So when I encounter an object, I'm gonna sneeze, by the way. Okay. So what I'm thinking is that, thank you. So dump value, this is what we have to do in here. And if we encounter an object, I feel like what we have to do is, I don't fucking know. What's gonna be the most convenient way to do that? So let's try to build this entire thing and see how this reacts. Yeah, you can't just do that because all of these things are, yeah, type and force. So I don't feel like I want to do cast type and for because it's kind of stupid. But at the same time, I didn't see any other way. So what we can do, we can just check how print does that. Right, so type. Okay. Ooh, so it goes a little bit deeper, right? So it goes into this kind of stuff, right? So there's a type of a type, right? It takes a type and for, and then it looks at the type and so on and so forth. So this is what we roughly have to do. But at the same time, okay, can I just do that, even though it's stupid? Yeah, it has to be constant. It's kind of annoying, but I suppose this is what we have to do. It's going to be float, maybe a string, boolean. Is that what it is? Yeah. Then we're gonna have a struct, and in case of a struct, 1, 2, 3, 4, if root type is equal to cast type and for object, we're gonna do something like that. Otherwise unreachable. This is to do. Maybe we're gonna put to-dos on all of these things. In all of these things, by the way, in case of the string, float, and boolean, maybe we can do literally the same thing, except the string. So in case of the string, if I want to print a value of the string, right, so I have to just do something like that. Even though I also have to like escape it and whatnot, right? I also have to escape it and whatnot. So in case of a boolean and float, I can just print that value. I can just print that value, and that's gonna be actually the root, right? So, and in case of the float, we can kind of fall through, right? So we can kind of fall through. That kind of makes sense, chat. Does it make sense? I think it does make sense. I'm not sure if I have to put semicolon here, but yeah. Anyways. So, is this shit compilable? Almost. Forgot the semicolon. Cool. So if it is a struct and it's the object and stuff like that, we need to maybe pad the whole thing. We probably need to pad the whole thing. So I'm not quite sure if I'm going to do something like level and I just print the spaces, right? So I printed the spaces. Then I have to print the what. I have to print this kind of thing. And then I have to print this kind of thing. So then I have to iterate that object, right? So I have to object, and has to be root value pointer. Yeah, it compiles. So then I probably want to iterate. So this is another thing. Might as well. My monitor has died. Might as well do something like this, right? So we want to iterate the object. We want to iterate the object, and will I be able to iterate the object? So maybe, but anyways. So this is the thing. Then I want to print the key. All right, so this is going to be the key, it index, and then what I have to do is dump the value. I'm going to be dumping the value, which is it, but with the level +1. Though, I'm not fucking sure, honestly, right? So this is already level +1, right? So it's already level +1. Then I have to do something like that. Probably not necessarily. Just print something like this. There's a lot of new noisy people in the chat, so that's why I put a sub mode in here. All right. So, and in here I probably want to put a new line here as well. Something like that. I'm not sure if it's going to make like a good looking thing, but yeah, let's give it a try. Let's give it a try. All right, so let's try to run it. Auto run. Kinda almost did the thing. Except I forgot some new lines. So was the first foo something. So new line goes here, right? So this is the new line. Then I do that stuff, then new line in here, and so on and so forth. That's hella annoying. I want to actually do double spaces in here. So I think that will make more sense. New line. Yeah, it puts a new line in here, which I probably should not do. Yeah, there we go. And yeah, this is annoying. Like how do I not do that? Please. So yeah, if this is an object, yeah, fucking. So do I not do this thing like that? But no, not really. Oh, it kind of worked out, surprisingly. I guess. Yeah, so we parse the tree. We parse the tree? I suppose. It's fun. Budgeting, I would even say. So let's actually release the plebs. Budgeting, we parse the tree. So, but we need to be able to also query that tree. So that person didn't say anything wrong. It's just like they were very noisy. I look at the chat and I only see one person. I didn't really read what they're saying. I just timed them out, just so you know, right? So because it's like, it's kind of weird when you have like 600 people and there's only one person just saying things, and it's just like, it makes sense to time them out because they're being very noisy, being very rude. And it doesn't really matter what they say exactly. So, okay, so we need to move all of that stuff, I suppose, to the module, right? So where we're going to be parsing things and stuff like that. We're going to be parsing things. So let me move all of that. By the way, in Jai, so there is a way to have private things, right? So I think there's like a scope file, right? So file scope, I don't quite remember. Yeah, there we go. So you can put private things in here, right? You can put all the private things in here. So if I put report in here, it is not going to be available anymore. Yeah, but if I move scope in here, it is going to be available, right? Except for the point where we also need to have stbc lexa, right? stbc lexa. There we go. Okay, so it also needs to have print and some other stuff. Not print, but it's basic, right? So it's kind of basic. Cool. Right, as you can see, so this is how you define private or not private. Can your Rust do that? Can your Rust do this kind of shit that ergonomically? In Rust, you have to go to each an individual fucking statement and do all of that bullshit. Here, you have this sort of handle which you can just move around. I say, okay, this is private, this is not private, and it's very convenient, very ergonomic. This is how an ergonomic syntax looks like, right? So this is how the syntax of a language that doesn't hate its users look like. So, all right. Rust obviously hates its users. Okay, so this is a dump value. Yeah, we can actually kind of put that in here. So maybe dump value could have been actually public, right? So, but I might rename it to something else in the future. So we need to implement load.gss file. All right, so this is going to be a public API, and load.gss file just consists of doing this kind of stuff, I suppose. All right, so this is going to be root. So load.gss file. So this is going to be input file. And I'm gonna just query replace input file, input path with file path, right, like that. So input path with file path. So this is the Lexa and so on and so forth, the parse, the body. And I suppose, yeah, GSS is just any, which means that I need to construct that stupid any yet again. So I have to do this humiliation ritual, yeah. All right, so should it be that hard? So this is gonna be a value. Yeah. Oh, it's kind of funny that I already do that. Huh. Yeah, it's just like it's naturally copy-pastable to whatever the fuck I do already, which is kind of nice. So in here, we probably have to return null false, right, to indicate the error, because we couldn't load the file and everything. So then we initialize the Lexa, create a new object on the stack, and there we go, here's the load GSS from file. That's very poggers, chat. That is very poggers. And so in the main program, what we can do is essentially GSS load GSS file, input file path, and also this is okay. If not okay, exit one. Right, and then we just try to do this kind of stuff. There we go, root. So this one is GSS. There we go. Read entire file. Okay. What we want to do is file. This is the pointer. There we go. So that seems to be working. So this is the public API now. One thing we want to do now, after we loaded this entire stuff, we want to query some things. So another important function in this entire API is get GSS values. Get, bleh, excuse me. Get GSS value. Get. I don't know how to pronounce it, but anyway. So this is going to be float, and what's going to be the path? So what value do we want to look up? What value do we want to look up? Let's look up the font of the title, right? So we want to say something like, it has to be string, style, title, font path. So this is what we want to look up. So we're going to do something like this, and then I'm going to just print the whole thing like that. So obviously right now it is not going to work, right? So because this thing is not implemented, but we need to implement it. We need to implement it. So we get the GSS. We get the GSS, and yeah, so we need to look it up. How are we going to be doing all that? I guess iteratively, right? I think it makes sense to do that iteratively. So we can start iterating the path, right? So we're iterating components one by one. Okay. So maybe, so we have some sort of a pointer or iterator. So let's call it it, and it points at GSS right now. And let's call it cursor, right? So because it's kind of a cursor within the tree, right? There's a cursor within the tree. So, and then we kind of expect the cursor to be an object. I need to look up in the how-to for any. Is there any convenient way to cast this entire thing to whatever? I feel like there's no, but anyway. So cursor type must be equal to type info object for this to work out. If it's not equal to that, I suppose we return null because we didn't find this thing. So then we take an object, which is going to be, I don't know how to do that, cast pointer to an object, and we do cursor value pointer. Then we say table find. Can we just find the value in table find? So just find. There is just find, and it also tells you whether it was successful or not, which is rather convenient. So here is an object. The key we're looking for is actually this thing. So this is the key. And then we can tell whether it was successful or not. And that successful or not is going to be the next value for the cursor, next cursor, something like that. Okay, if we didn't find that specific value, that's an instant return null. If we found that value, well, that becomes the next cursor, right? That becomes the next cursor. And this is how we grinding the tree. We're grinding down, trying to find that specific path. So now, after iterating through this entire thing, we probably found a particular thing. And we now need to check whether the cursor's current type is equal to the expected type, right? So we need to cast this entire thing to type info, maybe T, right? So if the cursor type is not equal to the expected type, we're going to return null. I'm probably doing this type thing incorrectly. I really apologize to John, right? So I'm probably doing that incorrectly, but I'm trying to do something that kind of works. So, but if it is equal to what I expect it to be, I might as well just return the value type. So there you go. So value pointer. And that should be the entire implementation, right? So path is just a sequence of fields and we're just grinding them down. And yeah. Okay, so I'm going to try to run this. And there we go. We found it. So let's test other values, chat. Let's test other values. What value we want to look at? Let's find the top value of a thumbnail within the style. Budgeting, by the way, budgeting. Okay, so chat, look. We are looking for style. Thank you for the subs. Thank you. Style, thumbnail. And what was that? Top. And the value in here that we expect is a float, right? So we expect it to be a float. And if I try to run this one more time, it is 0.2, exactly equal to this one. So we have a code that loads up this string, and then, you know, I can query that specific path by a sequence of strings. So we implemented that. The only thing that we have not implemented is an ability to have expressions in here, as I already said. So we're already streaming for like 3 hours, and maybe I'm going to leave that for the next session, right? Multiple routes are allowed. Well, yeah, I think they are technically, so we can actually test it out. So where is the style? Let's put style 2 like this. And then in here, after we loaded the style, let's actually dump value GSS and let's see what's gonna happen. So token, I forgot the comma. And there you go. Oh, what am I looking at? Yeah, there you go. So I suppose for a file, there is an implicit top level object. So you can actually have several styles, yes. Yeah, so you can do that. it's really missing an ability to have expression in these nodes. So the way I would approach that, by the way, GSS, I suppose we need to introduce an expression, like literally expression, which is going to be a union, and it's probably going to have a kind, so it's going to be a tag. So in terms of what kind of stuff we want to have in here, so it's going to be enumeration, and I suppose a variable, right? So it's a reference to a variable. Then maybe binop, right? So binary operations, because we want to have mathematical operations and stuff like that. And maybe just a value as well, which also means that, yeah. So the values are also kind of expressions and stuff like that. But yeah, so essentially, this sounds like another session, honestly. Right, basically parsing expressions, and then on trying to get that expression, evaluating it. And what's interesting is that, yeah, what if we're gonna have an expression that computes a new object? We may have something like that. For example, what if thumbnail is a computable object and we're trying to get inside of a computable object? So what it has to do, it has to take style, then it takes thumbnail, it realizes that it needs to be computed to proceed, it computes, creates an object, caches it, right? And then goes inside of that object. Damn, this sounds like I need to do another session. I think it's going to be double stream session, right? Because I want to implement that on stream. This is awesome. This could be a pretty cool exercise. Implementing a system like that that can actually, like, you know, have expressions and can cross-refer to itself and stuff like that. Sounds like a cool fucking idea and cool fucking exercise for programming. So yeah, change API. Well, I mean, that means, so here's the thing. This kind of stuff introduces more surface area for an error. You know what I'm saying? What that means is that now you can have incorrect syntax within the query string. So that means I need to introduce additional machinery to report incorrect syntaxes, and this incorrect syntaxes might be like, can be they code at compile time? So does that have to be executable at compile time? I'm not sure, right? Is it worth it? Like, it feels like it's not worth it. Infinite loops are also an interesting thing, like how we detect them. So are we trying to solve like a halting problem? But it depends on whether the whole thing is going to be Turing complete or not. We may accidentally make the whole system Turing complete. And because of that, just detecting loops is going to be a halting problem. But I'm not really sure, like how would you make such system Turing complete? Some sort of introducing conditions, right? So that's one thing. And what else do you need? So for a thing to be Turing complete, you need branching and infinite memory, right? So branching and infinite memory. If introduces branching, what it will introduce in infinite memory? Some sort of a self-referential thing. So essentially a computable object that computes itself while referring to itself and infinitely generates like infinite chains of objects. Something like that, yeah, recursion. Yeah, so usually, yeah. So you will need branching and this recursion, so the object basically generates like an infinite chains of like linked list or something like that. So that's how you can make the whole system Turing complete. And yeah, so detecting infinite loops in this system is going to be like a halting problem. But yeah, it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool system. So yeah, already streaming for like 3 hours. So I guess the time for me has come to go. Thanks everyone who's watching right now. I really appreciate it. Have a good one, and I see you all in the next recreation programming session with a who I missed others and possibly tomorrow. We'll see about that. Allow you all. this is the next day, and let's actually finish this feature. By the way, off screen, I actually thought about a better name for this format, right? So essentially what we're developing in here is a cascade language, right? So, and I want to call it cascade language because I feel like it's useful not only for styling, but also for configuration in general. And this is, by the way, one of the reasons why NixOS, Nix language is such a great for configuration. So it's going to be a cascade language, and we can so shorten it, right? So I want to call it castle, right? So it's going to be basically 4 characters as an extension, and it's pronounced like castle. So it's pronounced like this, but spelled like that. So that's going to be the format. I think it's actually pretty cool name. Cascading C style. CCS. Yeah, well, it's not really C, but I mean, anyway. So because of that, I want to spend a little bit of a time of renaming things around. So let me find all of the occurrences of GCC. Oh, that's a lot of occurrences, right? So maybe we can exclude them. Oh, the combination GSS actually occurs in binary files in here, right? So we want to exclude the directories. So this is going to be git and then exclude directory, I suppose, data, right? It's definitely not going to be in data. And in some of the modules, well, not really, but anyways. So this is that. This has to be castle, though not quite sure. Maybe I should not try to do that. Nah, it's fine. So this is a castle. This one's going to be castle. This is also going to be castle. Load castle from file, it returns castle. Right, I'm trying to only change the things that need to be changed. GSS and stuff like that. All right, and the whole module itself should be a castle. Right. Implementation of the so-called cascade language. Castle. Designed for style and configurations. For styling and configurations or something like that. So heavily inspired by Nix programming language, used in Nix package manager. Yeah, Nix programming. Let's just call it Nix programming language. And let me give the link to where we take all of that stuff. Yeah, so here's the issue. Replace stinky ini format with a Nix style language of some sorts. Yeah, so this is the thing, and I just want to like put this configuration in here. Okay, so if I try to compile this entire thing, surprisingly it compiled, but this is because I was trying to run the wrong thing. So this is a castle. Right, so this is going to be castle, and let's say castle playground. Right, so the castle playground, let's go through all of these things. And by the way, this thing has to be called castle. De la casa. All right, so castle. All right, so this is castle. Okay, what else we have in here? Castle. And this one is castle. Boom. And get castle value. Yeah, boy. All right, so there's a couple of other places. Just go into the compilation. It's great. Okay, let's now search for GSS one more time. Right, so there's a couple of places where we still didn't I properly didn't I change it? So I'm pretty sure. Am I going crazy? I felt like I literally changed them, but whatever. Yeah. Something is weird going on, chat. Something weird. So here is the castle. And one more time, GCC. So any more occurrences only in RGFW. But apart from that, we eradicated GSS from the code base. We eradicated completely. So everything seems to be fine. And does it even print anything? So to make it actually print, we need to execute it, auto run. There we go. So here is the thing. It also prints the value at the end and here, but I suppose we should not do that. Just dump the whole thing and everything seems to be fine. All right. So There's some untracked files, we don't need that, so let's put it like that. And let me find the ID, because I usually like to make commits with the ID of the task I'm working on. So it's a GSS, and this is Castle, right, as you can see. So I have some sort of a convention in here, right, so where I put the ID of the task I'm working on and a little bit of a description. Yeah, so it's kind of a, yeah, I have an basically background in enterprise development, so it kind of damages your brain permanently, so can't really help it. Thank you so much for all of this out, by the way. Thank you so much. Ayo missed the anniversary. Thank you. Yay, Jai, thank you. Like everyone, thank you. Really appreciate it. Even though I probably do not deserve that, but I really appreciate the gesture. Anyways, so yeah, what we need to do here, we need to now add a support for expressions, the evaluatable expressions in the CASA language. So if I open this entire thing, what I want to be able to do is essentially, let me actually enable GS mode. So instead of like providing the values, I want to be able to actually say, okay, so use this variable in here, right? So, and maybe use this variable in here. And for some of the situations, I also want to be able to say, okay, maybe like offset that relative to the thumbnails left by I don't know, like 10% or whatever, right? So by 10%, I want to be able to do these kind of things, and I want the language to actually compute that at runtime and give me the actual value. So, and as of right now, if I try to maybe run this entire thing, it is not going to even parse properly, right? So because it says that this is kind of an unexpected thing, an expected identifier style, which is kind of a weird error message, right? And this is because it didn't put the identifier in a quote. So this is something that I probably want to actually fix, chat. So Castle, let's find unexpected identifier, and let's just put that in the quotes, right? So because then it's going to make a little bit more sense. Yeah, unexpected identifier style. And if we take a look at the parser, what kind of identifiers does it expect? It expects true, false, and so on and so forth. So if we encounter some sort of a identifier in here, what we have to do, we have to parse it as a variable, right? So, and since we have like literal paths in here, I think a variable access has to be an array of strings, right? So it's not just a single variable, because the variable access could be a path, right? So we have to reflect it somehow. It has to be a path. And what's funny is that we have a function for getting a value out of the castle object tree, and it accepts path as a variadic in here. So it accepts path as a array of strings. So we already have a little bit of a sort of like a things clicking together like puzzles, right? So we already have a function that given array of strings for the path can give you that value, right? And now we need to create an AST node that stores an array of strings that represents path. So that means in the future we'll be able to take that array and literally pass it to this function to get it. So you see, things are clicking together. So that means the API is good, right? So I really like it. I actually really like it. So in here, like we need to introduce like an unevaluated expression, so to speak, right? So because all of these values are kind of already evaluated, but these things are not particularly evaluated. Let me actually put this sum a little bit down there. So first we're dealing with a simpler case of just accessing the variable. The dot in a function header means variadic. Yes, it means variadic, and it also means that it's passed as an array. So essentially, from the point of view of the function, this is an array of strings. It's an array of strings, but when you call this function, you actually pass elements one by one as a variadic. And also, like in JavaScript, right, if you already have a path as an array, and you want to pass it to this function, you can always spread it like that. So there's also a way to spread this entire thing, right? So it's kind of like it's a pretty advanced language, right? So it has, you know, these modern patterns. Yeah, we're back. Okay, so like I restarted my router, so everything is fine now. So you're stealing that. Well, yeah. Are you in beta? That's why you are not in beta, because you're trying to steal good ideas from John. Anyways, what I want to say, we need to introduce expression, which is going to be a union, and we're going to have a kind, which is an expression kind, right? So, and as an expression kind, what kind of things we're going to have? We're going to have a variable, right? So this is going to be a variable, and for the variable, we're going to have, let's call it literally a variable, right? And it's going to be a structure. It's structure. So I don't quite like how it indents things, right? So it's a structure where you have a path, which is something like that, right? So this is the first thing we're going to have, and essentially, as you can see, we return a castle, and castle can be one of the several things, and we never really documented that in here, but I suppose this is what we have to. This is what we have to say at some point. So castle, as you can see in here, is any. And that any could be one of the following types. It can be float, it can be boolean, it can be string, it can be object, which is a table, which is a hash table, and now it can be an expression, right? It can be an expression itself could be a variable, and so on and so forth, right? Something like that, right? So something like that. So here is the castle, and in here I suppose we also have to actually accept castle in here, and so a report, this is the arguments. So parse value, we have to return castle, and in here blah blah blah. Okay, so everything seems to be cool. So essentially, when we're parsing identifiers, we encounter true or false. In case of a true or false, we just assume that they are booleans. If there's something else, we assume that we are in the middle of parsing a variable. So essentially, we need to construct a path, right? So this is going to be path, and it's going to be dynamic array of strings like that. And so the first thing we do array add path, and we just add that ID in there. We just add that ID in there. But here we're dealing with this kind of thing, right? So we're dealing with this kind of thing. We already consumed one value, right? So that means the next one is going to be dot. So how we're going to parse this entire thing? We need to be able to like look ahead, right? We need to be able to look ahead, or yeah, we can do something like get this entire thing, like a get the next thing, and while the current thing in here is equal to dot, right? While it is equal to dot, I specifically expect an ID, right? So I can do expect token. And how do you even use this entire thing? Okay, so let me actually copy paste. So this is the file path, and this is the Lexa, and the token I expect in here is Clex ID, right? Specifically expect Clex ID, or maybe I can say Clex ID like that, and then do something like this. And if it fails, let's return false in here. Maybe we can do something like false like that. There we go. So we get an ID, and then we need to copy that ID into the path, right? So we need to copy that ID into the path. So it's going to be array add path, and so we need to convert it to a string and then allocate it on the heap. So that's what we're doing in here. Right. That's what we're doing in here. Then afterwards, we're trying to get the next value, and if it's going to be equal to dot, it's going to continue the loop. But if it's not a dot, we have to break out and kind of revert back. You know what I'm saying? So that means we need to have like a saved L, right? So first thing we do, we actually try to save L, right? We're saving it. So then we get some value. It turned out not to be a dot, so we have to now recover it from a saved one, like so, saved L. But we also have to save it every time we get the next thing. So we save it, then get the next one, and so on and so forth. So we can basically revert back at any moment. And there we go. So at some point we are we collected the path, so we are ready to create an expression node, right? So we're ready to create an expression node. How we're going to do that? So it's going to be an expression where the kind is equal to variable, and then the variable itself, right? So it uses path as is in here, I suppose. Yeah, so we can do something like that in here. And we need to put that into any, which means that we need to allocate expression on the heap. This is going to be the value. And yeah, so we have to do this kind of thing separately. So this is going to be a variable, then this is the variable path is going to be equal to path, and there we go, we've got sort of like this thing. By the way, if I return, like if I have a pointer and I just basically implicitly convert it to any, what's going to be the type of that any? Because it's a little bit weird, you know? It's kind of a little bit weird. So if I do foo_j, something like that. So this is a foo_j, and I have this stuff, and then I do equal to 69. It is going to be equal to 69, right? So let's actually go ahead and try to run this entire thing. So this is going to be foo. Right, so we need to have something like basic, import basic, like that. Yeah, 69. But at the same time, value pointer points to a pointer to this value allocated somewhere on a stack. But what if I had y, which was initially a pointer, right? So I have a new integer, and then I dereference it and put it into 69, and then I say, okay, now x is equal to y. So what is it going to print? Yeah, so it's a little bit weird, right? So there's no really quick and direct conversion of a pointer to any, unless I missed something in the how-tos, right? Because any by itself is a pointer, but is there a convenient way? Like, I already have a pointer, can I quickly, yeah. You see what I'm saying? Like, you kind of have to do all of this gymnastics, which is kind of weird. And I do not fully understand why I have to do this gymnastics, but okay. Okay, so maybe there is a good reason for that. So castle, playground. So where is the parser? Yeah, so this is what we have to do. So this is that, and then I need to create an any, where where we have like a cast type info, and the type we have in here is an expression type, and here's the value, and this is what we have to return in here. A little bit kind of weird, but okay. Okay. All right, so if I try to compile the playground, castle playground, what is it going to do? So parsed semicolon, forgot the semicolon, spends 3 hours debugging, so this one has to be just that. So key is not the member, was it kind? I meant kind in here. Okay, so this is rather interesting. Yeah, so it managed to successfully parse this thing. Okay, let me comment out this entire stuff. Right, so maybe I can just do something. I might as well actually do something like this, right? So we are not, yeah, there we go. And now when it tried to parse this entire thing, right, it tried to parse it, we got an unreachable because we got a struct, but it's not what we expected. So here we expected like an object, but you can also have something like a, you know, expression. And I suppose this is what we have to handle in here. So can I quickly convert that to case? Is it possible to use these kind of pointers in here? I think it should be. Let me see. No, it's not possible. Case cast, yeah, so it's not constant. Look at that. That's kind of funny. But what if I just do something like that? Mismatch tuple and version time wanted. Yeah, that's kind of weird. So why can't I just, like, you know, dispatch them like that? But okay, it is what it is, I guess. So we have to do it like this. So the root type, I suppose it has to be an expression, right? So let's put assert false false to do expr in here. False to do expr. And did it fail at to do? Yes, it did. It did fail to do. So this is an expression. Okay, so and this is where we can do some interesting things. So this is going to be expression, a pointer expression, I suppose, and then I just take root. So it's a root value pointer, right? Root value pointer. Let's do complete, right? So it makes this thing exhaustive, and I'm looking at the kind, and as of right now, the only kind we have in here is a variable, right? So this entire thing is exhaustive, right? So it kind of guarantees this thing. So expression variable, right? Expression variable. Case. So a case statement, yeah, it has to be equals, all right. And what does it say? Okay, expression variable. So this is what's cool in here. This is what's cool in here, because inside of the expression, we can access path. But as I already said, when I said that things are clicking now with each other, things are clicking, now we can literally do this kind of shit. And this is rather interesting because we have to query this entire thing relative to the entirety of the root, but we don't know how deep we are in a recursion as we're iterating and stuff like that. We don't really know how deep we are. But in any case, so what we have to do, we can put the path in here and we can spread it like that. And also it raises the question, what kind of type we even expect in here? So here's the thing. So get castle value is designed so you know the type of the thing. Nix language UI, yeah, it's kind of like similar to Nix language, but not entirely. So we need a function. We need a function that can get a value where you don't know the type and you honestly don't even care. But luckily we can overload things. So essentially we can say, okay, we don't know the type, and instead of pointer, just return any, right? So return whatever you've got in there. Just return whatever you've got. And in here we can copy paste the basic iteration of the root, right? So the very basic iteration of the root up until you get to some point. And this one has to be probably the castle, right? And in here, I suppose we're just returning this entire stuff. And this is kind of annoying. Like, how do you indicate that you didn't find the thing? How do you indicate that you didn't find the thing? I suppose. Is there like a null any? Is that a thing? Is there a null any? I feel like there should be some sort of a null any. Let me see. Where is the Fuji? I remember that if you have a function, right, which returns any, right, you can't really do shit like that, right? Any is a structure, but you won't be able to do it like that. So let me take a look at the foo. So yeah, so it says attempt to cast a not yet type literal to any, which is not valid. Any needs to know the concrete type of the struct. Yeah, okay, but we can say something like any. So this is a null any. Okay, that's pretty cool. But what if I try to print that null any? So what is it going to say? So I remember there was like a recently a release that if you have a type, right, some sort of a type thingy, and it's 0 initialized, it is still a valid type, but the question is, what type is it? So there was something in the changelog, but I don't quite remember. So because of that, any may work out like that. Right, so it's actually called null any. So, and let's put, yeah, Emacs, null any, let's put it like that, and oh wow. But what if I can try to return 69, right? But it's probably not going to work. Yeah, so because it basically takes it allocates this temporary value on a stack, takes a pointer to that temporary value, wraps it into any, and returns that, but then as you exit the function, that value gets deallocated from the stack. So now you have a pointer pointing to invalid memory, and you get some shit like this, right? So which doesn't make much sense. So you can always return the string, and it's also going to be an invalid string. Yeah, it just didn't return anything. But if you have a null any, right? If you have a null any, it just returns that, which is rather interesting. So Jai seems like it would be a nice language for web service. I'm not quite sure. It doesn't really have that many good facilities for asynchronous I/O. You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't, like, I feel like it would benefit from some coroutine style stuff, but I'm not quite sure. So I would say it is useful for web server stuff as much as C, which means that you can do that, but it doesn't really have anything specific for that. Right, you have to build your own concurrency on top of it, which is very annoying. Yeah. And this is because the language was designed for game development rather than web server development. It doesn't mean that you can't do web server development in it. And honestly, I feel like web server development could be also part of the game development if you're developing network games, client server network games and stuff like that. But this is not the kind of games John likes to develop. As far as I know, I kind of remember he kind of has a trauma developing this kind of games. He tried to develop them in the past, and it was insanely complex, so he's trying not to do that anymore. John says Jai is a general purpose language and it hasn't been designed for games for like 10 years. Okay, so I didn't know that, right? So suppose this is like a obsolete information. So yeah, anyways, so let's actually try to maybe grep for like any. Right, so, and yeah, in print, okay, because this is interesting. So yeah, that is fascinating. So print looks at any, right? So it discovered that it's any, maybe uninitialized, potentially uninitialized any. Fascinating. Then if it is initialized, it takes its pointer, it looks at its, if it has some sort of a type, it just prints it as that type. If it doesn't have any type, right, so type is apparently null, right, it looks at the valid pointer, and if it's, yeah, any with null type field, that's very interesting. So you have a valid pointer, not null pointer, right, but null type, it has this kind of thing. But if both type and pointer are a null, it just returns you like a null any. Fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. So there is a special thing for that. There's a special thing for that. I'm curious, is there any facilities to sort of like check, is that a null any? Right, so I want to actually grab it a little bit in higher level. No, it's actually, this is the only place where this kind of value is referenced. Not really the only, there's a couple of, there's another one in here. So we could get an initialized any from the user and declarations. So kind of the topic of null any is not particularly fully expanded upon. How do you say that in English? I'm trying to, I'm saying basically Russian idiom, but in English. So let me think. I want to take a look at the any tutorial. So do you have any? Nah, it doesn't even mention that in here as well. So null. Okay. So it's kind of an uncharted territory, underdeveloped, yeah. So kind of an uncharted territory. I'm not really sure what I want to do about that, but in many places in here, right, I quite often return null where I'm supposed to return any, right? And I'm not quite sure if that's a good idea per se. Not really sure if that's a good idea. Well, I mean, this is the new function. Yeah, so for example, in here, right, I return null, which I suppose is not really null, null any, but let me see. So what does it return? What is it called if I try to do just null? So, ooh, this one is interesting. Is it always the same? Yeah, it's always the same. What is this pointer? It's kind of a funny pointer. It's kind of a fine pointer. Huh. So yeah, this is definitely not the correct way of doing that, and what we want to return instead is probably something like any like this. And return any like this. Otherwise, you want to return something like that. So where are the return nulls? Any like this. So there should be there should be a function. There should be a function that checks whether it's a valid any or not, and it should be called any. Are you okay? I'm so fucking sorry. It's just like. So essentially what it's supposed to do is basically any type and any valid point. So you guys think, is that a useful function? Absolutely, man. Please do your best Michael Jackson impression. My voice is too low for Michael Jackson expression. I'm really sorry about that. The only thing I can do is grab my crotch. So that's it. I hope I'm not gonna get banned on Twitch for that. Michael Jackson expression. Anyways, yeah. Let's take a look at the other return nulls. So this is fine. Yeah, so this one, this is where we have to return any. And this is gonna be any. What's the next one? That's basically it. All right, so I suppose, what if I have, can I put any into conditions like this? Is that something I can do? Actually, let's say, can I put null any in conditions? And the answer is yes. And no, actually it has to be the other way around, right? So, because it's supposed to be false, right? And let's give it a try. Yeah, you can't do that. It doesn't even compile. The expression cannot implicitly recurs to bool, even under lax rules of if or while conditions. Its type is any which cannot implicitly recurs to boolean. Lax. Fascinating. Thank you so much for the subs. Thank you. Okay, so that means the only way we can actually support that in this API is to return a boolean like that. You see? Yeah, we got a stream again. So yeah, all the details is in the Discord. Basically, I rebooted my router. So if and while are basically, oh, I see what you mean. Okay, thank you. It's fascinating. All right, so in this specific case, all right, so what we have to say is false, not found. Any false, not found, this is true. And by the way, now we have a little bit of a duplicate code, but we can compress that duplicate code. So essentially, so I'm gonna do something like that. We're taking the root, should have called it root. I think root works better in here as a name. So castle root. No, yes, no, no, yes. Okay. So this is a root. We pass in the path like so, pass in the path, and it should give us the value or found, right? And if not found, just return null. Otherwise, right, so this is the cursor. We can call it a cursor. Yeah, there we go. So that's much better. So we reusing the things in here. And through function overloading, right? So we have a different flavors of the same kind of API in here, which is great, I think. Which is great, I believe. Okay. Yeah, kind of cool. Kind of cool, kind of cool, kind of cool. So let me try to do this thing where I try to do castle, castle playground Jai. All right, so I'm in a wrong place. I'm in the wrong place. I'm gonna try to do, yeah. A mystery moderator. Thank you, Chiturin. So mysterious moderator. Anyways. All right, so when I'm dumping the thing, right, when I'm dumping the thing, it's Mr. German. Okay, I see. It's cool, it's cool, it's cool. What I want to do, I need to have the root. That's the thing. But this is just the current value. I have no access to the root, root. So because of that, I suppose I need to kind of, yeah, I probably need to have like a dump value implementation, right? So this is the implementation, and in here we have something like this, right? Can I put it like that? Yeah. So, and here we're gonna have a root and then the current, right? So let's actually call it current because I want to kind of like restructure things a little bit in here. Oh, and because of that, we don't even have to do shit like this. Thank you for all of the subs. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I really appreciate it. Anyway, so this is going to be a root, and this is going to be a level. We can, since it's an internal function, we can just actually not accept anything in here. So something like that. All right, all right, all right. So what do we have? And yeah, so for now, I feel like I want to put a to-do in here. So it's going to be false to-do. It's going to be variable expression. Variable expression. So yeah, let's rename root to current. Something like that. Cool. Dump value impl. All right. And that's about it. Okay, cool. Now I want to pass not only current but also root. There we go. So you have access to the current value plus the root value for querying things around. But what's funny is that in the future we'll need to have some sort of a support for example, querying within the same scope in a sense, right? So imagine that I have left equal to some value 69, and then I want to say, okay, top is just like left, right? So that means you need some sort of a system of scopes and stuff like that, but that's rather complicated, so I don't think it's gonna fit in the scope of today's session, so probably not gonna do that today. So I suppose if you want to access the variable, you have to provide the full path starting from the root. Right, so that's going to be the idea, right? So you have to start from the root. Relative scoping, it's kind of like difficult to support. It probably requires reorganizing this whole thing, but we'll see how we can do that. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. This is going to be probably like a more or less legit language. So in here, since we now have an access to the root, right now we can try to get the value of that root, right? So let's try to get the value of that root. So this is root. We don't know its value, right? So, but we take an expression path, and it should give us some sort of a value, right? So it gives us the value, or whether it's found or not, right? If it was not found, I'm not quite sure what we want to do in here. So this is just dump. Look at that. I just realized that maybe in case of a dump, we should not give a fuck. No. By the way, when I do the dump, should it evaluate all of the... I feel like it should evaluate the things, right? So because that's kind of the reason why you want to dump it, right? So you want to see how it managed to evaluate itself, I suppose. So yeah, because of that, if it got found, I suppose I want to just print that value. Okay, I just want to print that value, so that means, yeah, let's go ahead and try to do that. So this is going to be the root, and this is going to be the value. And if it's referring, yeah, so if I'm doing something like that, I'm going to keep the same level then. So this is when it's found. But when it's not found, what do we do here? What do we do here? I suppose we can just print it as not found, right? We can just print it as not found. Invalid variable. Something like that. So yeah, that should work out, I think. It should kind of work out. Okay. So what do we have in here? So we also have to specify root. Okay. So in here, yeah, when we do that, we always preserve the root. That's kind of the whole point. And here is the path. Path is not part of the expression, yeah, because it's a variable. It's a variable, very much variable. Aha. Let's take a look at that, chat. Chat. Look at that. So you have a title, and in the title you have a left value equal to style thumbnail left. So in here, left is equal to 0.59, and the value is 0.59. I think this is a budgeting, because look now, right, so here is 0.59, right, 0.59. Okay. So now I'm changing it to 69. So, and now, as you can see, all of these lefts are referring to the thumbnail left, right? And then I refresh the whole thing, and this entire thing becomes, so they're copied through. We have a simple support for variables, by the way. That's pretty cool. Already. But I suppose you can actually probably go into infinite loop. Look at that. Look at this. So you can do shit like that, I think. Latest is in work calls. Okay, good luck. Good luck with the work. So what do you guys think is going to happen? So because when we're trying to get this thing, we get a variable, right? So let's take a look at the code, right? So let's take a look at the code. We get a variable, and as we're trying to get the variable, we're recursively calling to itself. So I suppose it's going to go into the infinite loop. I'm pretty sure it is going to go to the infinite loop. Before we do that, by the way, let's do something different. A boba. A variable that doesn't exist anywhere. It was not found anywhere. So what is it going to do? It crashed. Look at that. Fascinating. So first of all, it's an invalid. Okay. So this is because I fell through. Right. This is because I fell through. And in this specific case, maybe it's... Yeah, I suppose we just have to break out of that. So maybe just something like this. If found, just do that. Otherwise, do that. So should I? There you go. Yeah, there you go. Look at that. Invalid variable. Invalid variable. It was not found. Was not found. And I suppose when you're trying to get that value, it should indicate that it was not found or something. Yeah. Maybe. But anyways, now for the interesting part. Style, title, left. Style, title, left. It's going to hang. Ooh. You know what I'm thinking? I think this is a Stack Overflow. I think it's just Stack Overflow itself. We keep track of the level of recursion, by the way. So what we can do, if level is greater than 100, we can basically, not quite sure, we can just crash print dump value stack overflow and just like exit. I'm not quite sure. Yeah, so we'll just exit with one. But you know, 100 still can be too much. It's still so that's not that actually. This is not that. But I feel like it should be. Fascinating. So it finds itself. Okay. Level is not being incremented. That is true, actually. That is actually kind of true. But the level was actually made specifically for the indentation. But maybe that's fine. So where we do a level +1. Yeah, so every time we do recursive, yeah, I should have, yeah. So in case of it, like regular values, it doesn't really matter, but here... Yeah, I removed it. Okay, level is greater or equal 100. Right, so dump value, stack overflow, and let's actually do exit 1. Let's do exit 1. Right, there we go, stack overflow. This is the stack overflow. Fascinating. We may actually do something cool, by the way, chat. Oh my god. We don't even have to have a unit. Yeah. Hell yeah. Oh, okay, this is so fucking cool, I think. I think this is actually kind of cool. Yeah. But this is like... all of that stuff is kind of done by the dump value, and I feel like dump value should not do that. I think all of that stuff should be done by get castle value. I'm pretty sure about that. All of that stuff should be done by get castle value. So let's actually see how we can transfer all of that stuff in there. So we can even test like different errors in here. So there are different kinds of errors that may happen in here. So aboba, right? So you can have invalid variable or stack overflow because it just like, you know, goes recursively or something like that. And again, dump value should not do that. So it's get castle value who's responsible for that, right? And which means that, like, you see, when you're trying to get a value, you get different kinds of errors, like different kinds of even outcomes. First outcome is the value was found. Another outcome is that you can have stack overflow, and I'm not even quite sure. So stack overflow. Yeah. Do we want to distinguish between them? Because I'm thinking maybe we want to have enumeration in here, right? Some sort of like outcome, right? So it's going to be outcome, and it's going to be enumeration, which is like found, invalid, like non-existent, not non-existent, don't exist. I don't know how to say that. Right, so just like I want to have like a nice looking value. Not exist, stack overflow. Do we care why? Missing, okay, found missing, stack overflow. Do we care about different, you know, outcomes? Right, so I'm not quite sure if we care. Yeah, so it's gonna be outcome. Okay, cool. So we're looking for some stuff in here. We want to find a booba. Yeah. So in this specific case, we have to return missing, and this is missing, obviously, right? So all of that stuff is missing, non-existent. Yeah, I already picked missing, so thank you so much. But if we found it, right? So if we found it, this is what makes it interesting. We must do the following thing. We must take a look at its value, right? And we need to port the code from dump. Where is the dump? Here is the dump. And in this specific code, right, so if the type is equal to expression, we must evaluate that expression. Otherwise, we can just return it. All right, so I suppose, yeah, if the cursor, yeah, I think I'm gonna do the following thing. If the cursor type is not equal to type info expression, just return cursor as is and say that it was found. If it is equal to the expression, this is what makes it very interesting. This is what becomes so freaking interesting. So we take the cursor, we take its value, so now it's an expression. We're looking at the kind of the expression. It is a variable, right? It is a variable, which means that we have to recursively, yet again, query that variable, and we have a special outcome in here. And in fact, we can probably just return the value outcome of that query. This is what we can do. But this function doesn't track the level yet. So now it does. And we can even have this kind of stuff in here. So essentially, if level is greater or equal to 100, it is very easy to just return stack. Look how pieces just snap together. Look at that. This is so cool. I really like that. So they just snap together. So it's kind of, yeah, there we go. We can even have something like max stack, max level, max stack size, or whatever. Right, so it's going to be, maybe it's going to become some sort of a parameter at some point, but I'll say it's going to be 100, right? So this is what we do in here. This is what we do in here. And so funnily enough, so there is this kind of thing where we also assert the type. We're trying to assert the type. Do we care, actually? So this is outcome. So this is outcome. If the outcome is not equal to found, we return null. So on this level, I suppose for now we don't care about the specific max recursion. Yeah, so it's called max recursion. Thank you. So maybe that's better. So then we take a look at that and blah blah blah. And I suppose that on this level we don't care about the reason. We only care whether we got it or not, right? So, but on this level we do care, right? So and yeah, let's go through the compilation errors. I think the time has come. The time has come. All right. So this is, yeah, it's sort of not really true. So it has to be something like found. Okay. What else do we have in here? Something terrible has happened. So at the reference a null pointer, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so where is that dump? Oh, yeah. Okay. So this is the value and this is outcome. Okay. So an outcome has to be something like this. If it's found, right, if we found some sort of a value, right, so we found some sort of a value, we probably want to print that value as usual, right? Otherwise, if it's missing, let's print missing and stack overflow, Something like that, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? So let's realign some of these things. So if something was found, it can be pushed in here. Yeah, because of that, by the way, I feel like, well, yeah, it's fine, it's totally fine. All right. Yeah, okay, so Stack Overflow, missing, and so on and so forth. And in here, by the way, I feel like it will not overflow. We can remove this overflow check in here. Right, so because it's already checked by the get value, yeah. Something like that, something like that. You know what's interesting, chat, is that this particular thing is already useful for what I want to use it. It is already fucking useful for what I want to use it. So let's go ahead and port the style from ini to castle. So where is the data? Where is the data? So here is the style ini, right? So this is a style ini. And we're gonna have a style castle. Style castle. Let me literally port all of that stuff, all of that ini things. So there's a lot of comments in here. I'm not sure if I wanna port the comments because they're kind of noisy. So I suppose I will refrain from porting them. I will add them later. So this is gonna be something like that. Right, so this is gonna be the screen, and this is the factor. This is the factor or something like that. Okay, this one is interesting because this is an integer. We don't really parse integers at all. Right, so we only expect floats. So maybe for now, I'm gonna actually say something like this, right? So I guess that makes sense. So this is the screen. So then we have something like sign. Right, the function. The ini file is so small, I will spend more time writing that function than doing that manually. So I'm not going to do that. All right. So just to give you an idea, this is just a 74 lines of code. So there we go. So sign. And what's interesting is that below we don't really have that many comments. So I might as well just actually do something interesting in here. Yeah, so essentially this is what we have to convert in here. So for that, I feel like, yeah, I can do shit like this. So look at that, chat. Yeah, that was some, man, it's kind of weird. Some weird thought just crossed my mind. Some weird thought. What would Chris Kaspersky say about LLMs? You guys know who that person is? Does anybody remember him, by the way? Back in my days, he was considered one of the legendary hackers. He died too soon. You don't guys know what is Chris Kaspersky? God damn it. I'm that fucking old. Do we have any millennials in here who remember who that is? No, it's not an antivirus. It's one of the legendary hackers. So, Russian hacker, writer, IT security researcher, and stuff like that. He died in 2017, before LLM boom and stuff like that. I suppose LLMs were a thing in 2017, but they were not on the same level, right? So yeah, he wrote a lot about like security research and stuff like that, and also in Russian language. It would be interesting to hear his opinion on LLMs, actually. Died at 40, yeah. I think it was some sort of an accident. So, injury and death, yeah. Was critically injured in a hard landing after skydiving. Yeah, I suppose nobody remembers him, which is kind of a shame, like at least in the chat. But he was very famous in the Russian-speaking community, at least, even though he's also done some stuff in English, I think. I'm pretty sure he was known in the English-speaking community as well. Yeah. kind of interesting. It's kind of interesting. I think you would like them. Security researchers really like LLMs because a lot of security research and searching for vulnerabilities is just like a lot of pattern matching, right? So, and it kind of like fits there really well, at least for, you know, initial, you know, discovery of vulnerabilities. Right, there we go. So I finished it. So now it's manually like that. Look at that. Isn't that cool? Isn't that cool? He would probably be horrified that corporations created a programming format where data and instructions are indistinguishable. Yeah, I guess. Maybe. I don't know. He kind of resembles Richard Stallman. Yeah, maybe he's just a skinny Richard Stallman. All right. So now, can I try to run the whole thing? So here is the entirety of the style ported to Castle, and it seems to be compilable, right? So everything seems to be okie dokie. Okay, so I feel like maybe I should be able to very quickly do some stuff. So style file .ini. Yeah, so here it is. So I'm gonna port it to the Castle, and the style, as far as I know, is a global variable. I'm going to change it to Castle. So, and then here we're also importing Castle. So I'm going to go through the compilation errors and hope that we're going to go through all of the places where I need to make modifications, hopefully. All right, so there's kind of a few things. Yeah, I have a special macro, right? So which is computes the current width and height of the screen, which is rather funny because it makes a query to the style. Right, it makes a query to the style. It uses user factor, then gets a field out of the style, and so on and so forth. So I suppose here we need to do the get castle thingy. So castle, get castle. Yeah, so it's a get castle value. Can I just do some castle value? Right, so we take it by the pointer. So now style, does it have to be the pointer? I feel like it doesn't have to be the pointer. Yeah, so here now we have style, screen factor, and then so we actually kind of change it. So now the type comes first. Type always comes first. Like that. So now this is how we have to refactor all of these things now. Yeah, so let's fucking go. So what else do we have? Yeah, okay. Okay. Can I do a little bit of a, you know, Emacs magic? Get castle value. So this is that. And in here we have a style. So this is just a style. And so then we grab this thing. Also, there was an ability to log errors or not, which is kind of funny, I think. So because you can just check whether this thing exists or don't exist, and yeah. So let's actually report that. So there was a value in here. There was a value in here which is called log errors, right? And if we encounter an error, right? If we encounter an error, well, it's not here, by the way. It has to be somewhere here. So if you don't not found, we have to say something like this not found. Right, and we have to like render this entire thing, but let's actually do something like that because I don't feel like rendering. Error field not found for whatever reason, and then we return null. But if log errors, well, I mean login errors is true by default, right? If log errors, just do that, and let's put it to do in here. Render path properly with dots and shit. Right, so that's the to do. All right, so let's go through the rest of the stuff. Okay, so place, this one is interesting. So there's a place texture element. It accepts the style, but it's not in here. So style is supposed to be castle, right? So that's what we're accepting in here. Let me see. So what else do we have in here? Get a new field. Okay, that's cool. Okay. Oh, there's also with, ooh, there's some fancy stuff with fallbacks. Oh my god. So I should have actually, yeah, we should implement that as well at some point. So this is a style, and in here we have style, and then, yeah. So we have to do something like that. Yeah. Full style. All right. So, and by the way, this has to be something more like get castle value. So this is get castle value. And what else do we have in here? So yeah, we need to implement get castle value with fallback. Yeah. So basically, if you couldn't find it, it should not crash or anything. It should just like return you fallback. So there's a variant of that. There should be a variant of that. Get castle value with fallback. And essentially, we're gonna have a fallback as of this type, right? So, and I suppose logging error is not a thing for this specific thing, so should be fine. Yeah, and it doesn't really return. Yeah, it doesn't really return the pointer. It's something like this. So, in essentially, all right, and essentially, we can do something like that. Log errors false. We pass in through all of that stuff. Type of fallback. Type of fallback. Path is like this, right? And it should return us some sort of a value. So if value was discovered, we just return that value. Otherwise, we return the fallback. Okay, so hopefully that's a thing. Get castle value with fallback. Right, so the style is that. And then can you see shit? Okay, so this is the fallback now. So the type is inferred from the fallback thingy. Okay, so what do we want in here? It has to be something like that. What else? Cool. Get aligns. So this is a function that gets aligns. Yeah, it has to be any, well, not really any castle, right? So let's go. Get castle value, style. All right. What else? Yeah, the type. So the rearrangement of the types is kind of a bit weird, but that's fine. So that's another one. Okay, so this is a string, style, something like that. All right. Do we? Oh yeah, get castle value. So I think this is the last one. I feel like this should be the last one. Not really. So there's a place text. Yeah. So and this is another thing. All right. So another one I would even say get castle value. All right. So this one is just that style. This is the stuff that LLMs are useful for, by the way, just for your information. Right? So this kind of stuff where it's just like, I mean, it doesn't make much sense to do that manually. But I guess we're doing that manually. It's not that hard. At least not as hard as I am right now. Excuse me. So, such a stupid joke. I'm so sorry. Yeah, so I'm gonna put this kind of stuff in here and boom. All right, so what do we have? Okay, so this is another thing. So get castle value, and this is the style. I hope by the end of this journey, it is going to at least work. It compiled. Chat. It fucking compiled, mate. It fucking compiled. So when I'm loading the style, oh, that's kind of stupid. Wait, why does it work? Oh my god, it's because of the fucking animate. Because of the fucking any. Okay, so I suppose I have to do that manually, I guess. Load castle from file. Yeah. Load castle from file, and it gives you either okay or not okay. I don't care if it failed or not, right? So just like whatever. We're allocating everything into the config anyway. So that's kind of whatever. Load castle from. Okay, so is it gonna compile? Okay, it seems to be compiling. All right, the moment of truth. The moment of truth. Budgeting! It worked first try. It worked first try, motherfucker, first try. Work first try, motherfucker, first try. Otherwise it wouldn't be working. Okay, now, castle, chat. I'm gonna enable the frame for the entirety of the thing. Now here is the cool thing. So we have title, link, logo, right? Now, yeah. So title is this thing. Link is a QR code, and the logo is Bandcamp, but I suppose what I'm interested in is probably thumbnail. So this is the thumbnail, this is the title, this is the link. I set thumbnail to 56, and here I have duplication of 56. I should be able to now say style, thumbnail left. Nothing broke, and now I'm only modifying the position of thumbnail. I can pin several elements to the same value. That is so fucking convenient. Holy shit. Fuck yeah. It works. Yeah, but it doesn't really support anything super complex, right? So yeah, I can't put, you know, complicated expressions in here or anything like that. It's only variables, but I'm going to extend it, right? So this is just a base language. This is just a base language. Now we can go ahead and start expanding it with more different things and stuff like that. And this is fucking cool in my opinion. This is really fucking cool that I can now pin things like that. In terms of the top, for instance, as far as I know, thumbnail and timer also kind of share the top, right? So this is gonna be not really. Let me find 20. So timer, in terms of the top, oh yeah, they do. Okay, so now what if I say that the timer, right? What if I say that the timer is style thumbnail top? Okay, so now we have a thumbnail, and if I modify the left position of the thumbnail, it automatically changes this stuff. But if I modify the top position of the thumbnail, it also automatically changes the timer, because the timer now depends on the position of the thumbnail. What if you mistype a style thumbnail? I suppose it's going to crash. Yeah, it's going to crash right now, saying that, yeah, so this value was not found. It's supposed to say that the value was not found, but yeah. But this is kind of something that we're gonna fix later. Yeah, this is something that we're gonna fix later. What's important is that we got like a base language in here. So yeah, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I think I implemented everything I wanted to implement for this specific task. All right, so the only thing is left is just keep expanding this language. I think I'm gonna maybe publish the implementation of this language. Are you continued now? No, I think I'm gonna finish the stream soon. Right, so because it was a little bit stressful for me today, right? Because internet problems and stuff like that. Yeah, to stream VOD. Yeah, and so I don't want the concatenation of the stream to be super big. Are you able to style sibling elements by referencing each other to specific values? Not yet. I just implemented the most basic things. So as of right now, you have to reference them from the root, but in the future, it should be possible to implement like siblings and stuff like that. Shouldn't be that difficult. like to let you know, I started implementing this feature yesterday, and this is the where we got. Do you really expect me to implement like absolutely complete Nix language from scratch in 2 days? Do you really expect me to do that? Like, I don't think so. So the only thing we have right now is just this, and ability to reference to like variables and stuff. Well, yes. Honestly, I guess given all the weird memes people throw around, I guess people do expect me to do shit like that. I'm actually not that good of a programmer, guys. So it's just like, I don't know why people think I'm some sort of like a cracked developer. I'm actually kind of like a shitty programmer. I would say I'm an average. So it's just like the bar in software development got so low that I look maybe cracked sometimes, but I'm actually not. I don't think so. I never considered myself like super cracked programmer. I always consider myself a person who likes programming, right? Who enjoys doing programming. That's what I consider myself, but I never really considered myself like a, really good at it. I'm good at enjoying programming. Everyone else stop programming. You are the last one, hence the best. Well, Spearman, you are also, very good at programming, right? So what the fuck are you telling me? So yeah, does anyone have any questions before I go? Does anyone have any questions before I go? My mom is very good at programming. That's pretty cool. My mom is not that good at programming. Do you use LLMs sometimes? I recently kind of don't use LLMs. I used to use them for simple queries, right? So instead of Google. But recently I just didn't use them. Though I suppose maybe because if I search something, I already get kind of like a LLM summary. Maybe that kind of satisfies my needs for LLMs, but apart from that, no. And yeah. Do you have a stream on Cosmopolitan C yet? Not, well, I have it in my to-do list, but I haven't got to that yet. Are you willing to move to another country? I have zero motivation to do that. So here's the thing. I definitely want to improve my living condition a little bit, right? But I kind of found the local optima, right? I kind of found the local optima where it's kind of fine. Not ideal, not perfect, but it's kind of fine. So for me right now, moving to a different country will be more effort than staying in here. You know what I'm saying? Because as of right now, I'm living in a country where the cost of life is relatively low, right? And because of the relatively low cost of life, I'm able to sustain myself from the donations that people send me through the crypto and stuff like that. By the way, if you want to actually support me, consider doing that donation, but crypto is kind of like a, not particularly convenient way of doing that, so whatever. If you can't do that, don't worry about it. So since I live in like the cost of living is relatively low, I can sustain myself right now. If I'm gonna be moving to US or Europe, the cost of life is significantly higher, which means I can't sustain myself through donations, which means I have to, I'm obligated to find some real job. So on top of a lot of effort of moving to probably thousands of kilometers, I also have to work more. And for what exactly? Right. So you see what I'm saying? It's just like I kind of found myself in this really weird local optima where does it make sense? And for what exactly? If I'm gonna move to US, I hear horror stories about US. As of right now, I open social media. Maybe it is overinflated, but I open any social media and I only hear horror stories about the US, the state of US. And I don't want to move there. You know what I'm talking about, right? So it's just like, why would I move there, right? So this is the first thing. Moving to EU fucking hates me. So just because I'm Russian, like I don't want to move to US because I hear horror stories about US. I don't want to move to EU because EU fucking hates me. So you see my situation, like why would I move anywhere? So move where? For what exactly? China. China is an interesting option, by the way. China is a very interesting option, but at the same time, I kind of feel like China is a little bit too culturally different for me. Thailand might be. So yeah, I'm not even sure. Does anything I say make sense, right? So because it's just like kind of just trying like math doesn't end up. People constantly tell me you have to move out, you have to move out, but I sit down, do the calculation, and math doesn't make any sense to me. It's just like I don't fucking know. So maybe I'm just weird, but it's like mm-mm. So Australia sounds like maybe an interesting option. So it absolutely makes sense. If you move, it will at least temporarily. Yeah, so it's kind of like if it's gonna be temporarily, and I know that it's gonna get better over time as I settle and everything, but I don't fucking know. Like for and on top of that, I'm actually extremely depressed because of everything, right? So that is going on with me, with the world, and with the country where I live in. So I have less energy at all to do things, right? So there's a lot of factors in here that are in play. So I don't know. I don't fucking know. So I'm depressed in a situation in US. Yeah, I talk to Americans all the time, and all of them are so fucking depressed. It's fucking insane. Yeah. So thank you so much, Thenor, and everyone who else donated. I'm similarly misphrased some of my questions and poked existing frustrations. I respect and understand your project and legitimately wish you tell well with your endeavors, and I will enjoy the content. It's fine. So thank you so much for this. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You know, like legit, moving to Belarus makes much more sense to me than anywhere else, to be fair. It's just like if you think about this, if you do the calculation, it's just like moving to Belarus makes a lot of sense to me because it's basically Russia, but just better because it doesn't block Western websites and stuff like that. It's just like it's gonna be at least a little bit of a step up, right? But I don't want to put too much stress on Belarusians, right? Because I know that they already hate us because a lot of Russians want to move to Belarus now. So it's just like, yeah, don't want to be another reason for them to hate Russians. Like I don't fucking know. Yeah, Belarus is actually absolutely fucking cracked in terms of programmers, right? So one of the best world best competitive programmer is from Belarus. So Tourist, right? So I think that's his nickname. Tourist, one of the best in the world. He's not super the best right now, but at least when I was a student, he was unbeatable at all. Like nobody could like even match him. So yeah, he's from Belarus. And as far as I know, I feel like maybe it stems from the Soviet times. We already talked about it a little bit, right? So because as far as I know, in Minsk, they were so there was a strong, like, sort of like a programming school or cybernetic school in Minsk. And they used to make computers, Soviet computers in Minsk. There was literally a Soviet computer called Minsk. Right, so I suppose because of that, so Belarus kind of inherited that programming school. So, competitive programming, haven't done it since I was 18. Yeah, so competitive programming is just like you kind of quickly outgrow it because after some level of expertise, it basically becomes a competition in pattern matching and typing, right? So it's just like you outgrow competitive programming very quickly. Does Belarus have a similar cost of living as roughly? I think we need to ask Belarusians. Do we have any Belarusians in the chat? I'm pretty sure if Sifon is still here. So I think it's a relatively low cost of life, but it may go up if a lot of Russians are going to be moving there. So I don't fucking know. Come to Bulgaria. I will think about it. You have a French accent. Thank you, comrade, for recognizing my beautiful French accent. What is competitive programming? It's shit like Code Forces and LeetCode, but more like Code Forces. Code Forces are you. Okay. This is what happens when competitive programmers are trying to make a website. So yeah, that's basically everything you need to know. Robotics is a neat programming channel. Yeah, it is. Beautiful French accent, comrade. Yes. Сука. Le сука. Nikolai Brusentsov and his ternary computers. Ой, блядь. Ой, блядь. What games did you play on retro consoles? So when I was a kid, I had Sega Genesis, aka Sega Mega Drive, right? So for non-US folks, and I used to play a lot of Sonic games. So, like a self-respecting autist, I played a lot of Sonic games. So, RuneScape, never played RuneScape to be fair. Yeah. Mortal Kombat, exactly. Yeah, Mortal Kombat. Yeah, that's mandatory. Golden Axe 3. That's also my favorite one. You look like a fellow Sonic OGer. What I like about Sonic fandom is that how intergenerational it is, because it's a kind of a franchise that existed for decades. So in that specific fandom, you have people of pretty much any ages, and it's kind of amazing, right? It's just like it's an intergenerational like fandom. It's pretty rare, I think. Who did not play Sonic? Well, I don't know, maybe. Where do you find joy outside of programming? Drawing? Sometimes I draw. I feel empty other than programming, and I regain joy by not using Cloud Code. Well, just don't use it. Yeah. Digital IRL drawing. Both. Why not? Digital and IRL. So the things, the panels at the bottom, I drew them. Though I don't really draw that often lately. I don't know why. Maybe I should draw more. Do you wish you were married? No. Thank you very much. Any experience on analog computing? I don't know. So I have a kettle, right? So, and essentially, I computed the volume of the kettle by pouring cups of water into it. Would you consider that an analog computing? I don't fucking know. It's kind of is, right? So I computed the volume of a kettle in an analog way. So what I remember from university days is that one of the professors was like talking about analog computers, and I think he was talking about like computers that were using like hydraulic pipes to compute derivatives and shit like that. It's like it was really fascinating. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. So, but I never really saw them in real life. Never really saw them in real life. Do you plan your work roadmap? I don't know. So in here, I have tasks. Right. So this is my roadmap. So this is the tasks I need to implement. Sometimes if I encounter something, I create a new task and just add it to the list. So yeah. So I guess analog is mostly about as endless quantization as you could possibly get. Yeah. So calculating integrals by cutting and weighting paper. Yeah. Have you seen some Golang changes? I don't really follow Golang. And to be fair, I'm kind of thinking of rewriting all of my Go software in Jai. Though I have a bot that is sitting in the chat. It's pretty big. I'm not sure if I want to rewrite it in Jai. And I kind of don't really want to use a system language to write that bot for safety reasons. So I don't know. I made my own tether and it's great. Yeah, it's kind of a cool idea. It's a kind of a neat idea. All right. So I think I'm gonna go, chats. I think I'm gonna go. Thanks everyone who's watching right now. I really appreciate that. Have a good one, and I see you all on the next recreation programming session with who I missed. I love you.